All right, we're going to take a pivot because we've got some breaking news here on BK and Ferrario. Alex, what do you have ready for us?
So the Cardinals just sent a press release that says Diamond Sports Group and the Cardinals today announced a new multi-year linear and digital rights agreement through which Diamond...
much jargon.
Has so much big words. I need Bradford here. Which Diamond will continue as the Cardinals' exclusive local media partner. Under the agreement, FanDuel will remain the home of the Cardinals broadcast all games that are not exclusively televised nationally. Agreement includes digital rights to deliver Cardinals games direct to consumer.
That's it.
Well, there's a lot more jargon in there. If you want to hear David, the CEO of Diamond, talking and Bill DeWitt III talking, I can tell you what he stated.
What did Bill DeWitt III say?
Bill DeWitt said, "We are pleased to enhance and expand our long-term partnership with Diamond and FanDuel Sports Network Midwest. We value the continuity for our fans of staying on the same network as the Blues, and we are excited that we will now be able to expand access to our games and other great Cardinals content across multiple platforms next year."
All right, so this is huge news. We don't know what the dollar figure is, but they've agreed to some kind of less than $70 million agreement, I would assume, because there's no reason for Bally to up the money from where they previously were or match the money, especially if the Cardinals effectively, through this negotiation, got their digital rights. Like that's basically what happened. The Cardinals will now be able to give fans the opportunity to go to Cardinals.com and purchase some kind of a package where, without having Bally Sports Midwest, which is a huge concession from Bally, you can now purchase like a $20 per month package or a $100 per year package to be able to watch each and every Cardinals game over the course of the season. Again, that's not televised nationally, potentially even those that are. That's significant. Maybe more so is this will give them certainty with what their dollar figure is annually on their budget. Now, instead of getting to November and having to say, and it's an honest answer, we still don't know what our budget is for next year, they now know. I don't know what the dollar figure is on the multi-year deal. I don't know how long this multi-year deal is. It doesn't specify, right?
Yeah, no, it does not. It does not. So basically all it says is we remain in discussion with our MLB team partners on go-forward plans, and we're confident that our linear and digital frameworks drives maximum value.
Yeah, so they know now, at least for the next 2 years, we don't know how long after that, but for the next couple of years, they're going to be on Bally, and Cardinals will have another opportunity to watch. Cardinals fans will have another opportunity to watch them via whatever this app ends up looking like. This is good for fans, honestly, first of all. Second of all, it's great for the Cardinals.
I'll add this one in, too, because you had to, dive through the minutia to find it. So it says, for the first-time subscribers to FanDuel Sports Network on direct-to-consumer basis will have access to games in the extensive Cardinals TV territory. Additionally, pay TV customers will be able to stream games and other programming on the FanDuel Sports Network by authenticating with their pay TV credentials.
Yeah, it's the same thing.
Yeah. So it's pay to watch if you're outside of the network.
Well, or inside. Like if you're in St. Louis, you can just buy the app.
Gotcha.
That's what this will be. If you're in the TV network area, you'll be able to purchase this app. That just says in the TV network area, right?
Well, it says people outside of the TV network area have the ability to pay for it.
I don't think I'm understanding. So read this one more time.
So first-time subscribers to FanDuel Sports Network on direct-to-consumer basis will have access to games in extensive Cardinals territory. Additionally, pay TV customers will be able to stream games and other programming by authenticating their pay TV credentials. So I guess it doesn't...
Is there more to this? Or
no, that's all it says right there.
Okay, that doesn't explain it at all. But the way that I'd understand it previously is everybody's going to have the opportunity to buy the app. I don't know if that's going to be the case based on what you just read. It might be that if you're in the area, you have to get Bally Sports.
Yeah.
And if you're outside of the viewing area, then you can I don't know.
Yeah, it does not.
That doesn't make sense because that would be MLB TV, and there's no blackout restrictions on that currently. So I have to imagine basically in this viewing area, you'll be able to buy the app. But that just makes it very confusing, and they should clean that up. But whatever. It's just the most important thing here to cut through the minutia and the nonsense that is the legal jargon that they have to put into these stupid releases. The Cardinals have come to terms with Bally on a deal that will allow them to have certainty over the next couple of years. The other thing, guys, this is a reminder that despite all the frustrations that exist with RSNs, it's still the best way to go about your business. Like, going about it where you're selling direct to consumer, you just make so much less money, dude. And there's so much fear among these teams of, we're going to have this massive shortfall in revenue. And when you end up getting to that place, it could not just be a retool. Then you go flat out tanking by next season. So I think it's really smart for the team. I think it's good for fans as well.
Yeah, I mean, after when we talked with Bill DeWitt III last week, it sounds like that there's something in the works, and this is as good of a deal that the Cardinals can ask for, because now you don't have any gray area for the at least coming years. You have some black and white information where you know what money's coming in. You have a deal in place, and there's not concern of it. And now it gives you a little bit more runway to work on what the actual future looks like for this. But this is good for the Cardinals. Now, I would imagine this isn't going to veer them away from the plan that they have set in place of redeveloping their minor leagues and still finding ways to save money in certain areas. But what this does is it gives you certainty. So if you try and stay competitive while you're doing everything that the Cardinals held 3 press conferences about, it gives them the chance to do 2 things at once, which should concern Cardinals fans because it seems like they weren't able to do 2 things at once prior. But to have this money in place, to know that there's certainty for fans and know that there's certainty for the team, this is the best case outcome for Cardinals fans right now, because now you don't have to go down into the cellar because you're going to be broke.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It is best case scenario for fans because now the fans can access games a lot easier, which is a good thing, and that's good for baseball as a whole. But also it's great for the Cardinals because of the certainty that you end up getting. I think if the the 3 teams that were produced by Major League Baseball this past season, the Padres, the Rockies, and the Diamondbacks, I think those were the 3. I bet they'd love to get an RSN situation because I don't think they did very well with their direct to consumer just by themselves. They didn't have. I think the Padres had like 40,000 subscribers. I think if you just average what they were selling it for, it was like $5 million is what they brought in. That's nothing. And now they're not going to get the same dollar figure here. They'll probably get less. My guess would be like $40 million range. I think that'd be like around 20% less. That is still so much better than going into the unknown. And now you can at least say for multiple seasons, okay, here's what the deal looks like. If you believe in the restructuring that Diamond was able to do, you hope you can get through that deal. And now you don't have to worry about it until that contract runs up.
Yep, it's really good for basically everybody involved. And while I understand the frustrations that previously existed with Bally, for the team, for fans, for everybody involved, and I hope this app, whatever it ends up being, is better than the old one, because that thing had to rebuffer every 5 seconds. It was not good. It was not a good situation for anybody. It speaks to where we're at with these models. Because I feel like 5 years ago, Rob Manfred was like, everybody needs to get to direct-to-consumer as quickly as humanly possible. That is the future, and it's happening now. And now you see this, and like, it's becoming increasingly clear, no, that might not be the future. So we talked about yesterday during the junk drawer, Alex, like, you can want this podcast model that everybody would love to go towards, but there's like 20 podcasts nationally within each category that actually make money by doing it that way. We've taken everything off of cable and onto their own apps, and so now people are paying, $15 for HBO Max and $20 a month for Netflix and $10 a month for Hulu. But now we've got this package that's a bundle, sounds like cable, for Hulu and ESPN Plus and Disney. They all now go together. And you've got like 15 different apps that you have to buy. And it becomes overwhelming. And so now if you're the Cardinals, especially right now, given what you're doing, the idea that we're just going to go to this app where people have to purchase it separately, well, the reason why the cable model works is because people like my mom and dad that don't care about the card, or people like my sister-in-law who does not watch the Cardinals ever, but has cable, she is paying for the cable package, which includes Bally Sports Midwest. Mm-hmm. So she's got like $2 a month from her package that's going towards watching the Cardinals, and she has no interest in watching the Cardinals. So it's essentially subsidizing, nobody wants to talk about this, but it's like the way that the medical market works.
Uh-oh.
If you look at the way that your healthcare works, it's because everybody's in it together, this huge pool, so sick people are subsidized. But anyways, it's the same thing for cable. That's why the whole thing works, is because everybody is paying for the sports and the movies and the Disney, all of that. Yeah. So Cardinals are in a good spot right now. Cardinals fans hopefully will come out of this ahead as well. The way that they described it, I have no idea what they're actually doing with the app.
Don't get mad at me, man. It's a press release.
I know.
FanDuel and Cardinals didn't provide me with a whole lot of context.
My guess
they
is,
didn't do the press release for dummies.
a week ago, he said there's going to be a direct-to-consumer model that is
Yeah.
available. I have to imagine that's going to be available to consumers here in St. Louis. Otherwise, you just had MLB TV. Like, nothing would have changed if they weren't going to be doing that. All right, he's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. You've got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. That's the breaking news. Again, if you missed it, Alex, you want to read the beginning of that press release one more time, not the nonsense.
I'll stay away from the minutia. Diamond Sports Group and the Cardinals today announced a new multi-year linear and digital rights agreement through which Diamond will continue as the Cardinals' exclusive local media partner. The agreement includes digital rights to deliver Cardinals games direct to consumer.
I'm sure there will be more details on this over the coming
Boy, I hope so.
few hours, because John Mozeliak is down at general manager meetings in San Antonio. So reporters, I would imagine, will talk to him by the end of the day today, and that will help to clear some of the questions up about how people will be able to access the Cardinals next year.
So we're all expecting Mo saying, like, okay, now we're going after Juan Soto.
No, but I did find it interesting in their story from yesterday from Derek Gould that the Cardinals don't plan to have a full-blown sell-off. And we did get some answers on Willson Contreras and Sonny Gray. And I believe we got an answer on Nolan Arenado as well, even though you have to read between the lines a little bit for that one.
No.
We'll talk about that coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
He had a couple of hits in game one. Drives this one a long way toward right. Back goes Suzuki. Back up against the wall. He leaps up. Can't get it. It's a home run. He shaped that baby just like the 2-0 Cardinals.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, that audio courtesy of FanDuel Sports Network, where the Cardinals will be playing their games once again in 2025. If you missed the announcement in the open today, it looks like the Cardinals will be having a direct-to-consumer product here in the St. Louis area. Reading up on this a little bit during the break. That'll be available for you in the viewing audience, like in St. Louis market. The MLB TV stuff will all still cover beyond the previous TV network area. So if you're in St. Louis or the surrounding areas, you'll be able to purchase that direct-to-consumer model if you do not already have FanDuel via your cable package. If you have your FanDuel cable package, basically, nothing changes for you. The Blues are still there, Cardinals still there, you're ready to go. Alex, Willson Contreras is still going to be here as well, apparently, because the Cardinals plan to move him to first base next year. This was announced yesterday by John Mozeliak, Cardinals president of baseball operations. He said the decision is a two-way street. Both parties are deciding a position change will benefit Contreras from a health perspective and for his career longevity. The change also frees up playing time for catchers Ivan Herrera and Pedro Paez. The biggest offseason priority, according to Katie Wu of The Athletic, for the Cardinals is to create paths for younger players to get consistent playing time. By moving Contreras to first base, they have found a way to keep both young catchers on the roster while also keeping Contreras in the lineup every single day. Alex, do you think this is a smart move by the Cardinals? Do you think they made the correct decision in this scenario?
I do. Because I think what they said about his health is probably the most important thing for the Cardinals, and keeping him healthy throughout the season is only going to benefit them. That's what they need to worry about most. If Willson Contreras wants to be here, then you need to make sure that Willson Contreras is available for as close to 162 games as possible. Having him behind the plate has not kept him healthy throughout his career. But watching his offense last season, where he had a 136 OPS plus, where he was one of your best bats, if not your best bat when he was healthy, you need to keep that guy healthy throughout the season, and having him behind the plate does not make sense. Are you clogging up a spot at first base? Probably. But if Willson Contreras does not want to be traded away and you feel that his bat is still pivotal for your team's success, then find the spot where you can keep him healthy the most. And whether that's first base or DH, that's up to your decision. But getting him out of the catcher position benefits your team for at least this upcoming season.
Yeah, I'm not overly upset about the move to do it, but I don't think I would have done it if I were the Cardinals. Because I think, and look, they're trying to sell you at the GM meetings that they still want to field a competitive team. I think your best team, with the roster that you have constructed, has Contreras behind the plate, and it has Burleson at first base. And I think that's your best offense/defensive lineup that you can have there, because we saw last year, Paez, Herrera, those two guys. Paez was okay at the blocking and the framing. He wasn't that great with getting runners out on the base paths, unlike Willson Contreras was, when we know the Cardinals hated Herrera's noodle arm back there behind home plate. I think your best lineup would have Contreras behind home plate and Burleson at first base. And the other thing that I just fully disagree with how the Cardinals are operating this, I don't see the need to get Paez the playing time that the Cardinals are going for. And I'm not meaning to make that as a shot at Pedro Paez, but I don't see the offensive upside. And I'd rather carry the two bats in Contreras and Ivan Herrera, and Herrera can still get reps as kind of a DH-type guy in those scenarios for the St. Louis Cardinals if you don't have Paez here. And it's not like what I'm saying is, oh, now we have to trade Pedro Paez. No, he's the third catcher that's in the minor leagues. But they would tell you we've got this Jimmy Crooks kid that has to be at AAA as well, that they're just kind of hanging on in kind of this cluster of catchers with four guys. I just don't see that need if you're the St. Louis Cardinals. I would have sent Paez down to the minor leagues. Contreras would be my catcher. Herrera would be the DH/backup catcher for me. I just don't get the need to send Contreras to first base.
I think it's smart. I think it's really smart. But when I first heard the news yesterday, I was surprised by it, so I needed a little bit of time to be able to, internalize it and get to the place that Alex is at. But I think he's right. When you look at what they need for Willson Contreras, if he decided that he wanted to be back, and he clearly has, you need him to be in the lineup every single day. What plays for him is his bat. And you look at what he's done in recent seasons, if you just put him at first base last year and you ranked his offensive production compared to every first baseman in the league, he would have been fourth in slugging percentage. If you want to get super nerdy with it, he would have been third in weighted runs created plus, which adjusts for ballpark factors, things like that. Second in on-base percentage. This is a real bat that plays anywhere that he could have been on the field. There are some catchers who are plus hitters for the catcher position, but if you put them at first base, they become below average first baseman relative to that spot on your in your lineup's production. That's not the case for Willson Contreras. Contreras' bat plays wherever you put him. And last year, you got 84 games out of him. The year before that, 125. The year before that, the Cubs got 113. The year before that, the Cubs got 128. You need Contreras in the lineup 150 plus times next year. And if the best way to do that is by having him at first base, so be it. We've got a lot of texts, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line, that basically say, guys, what about Jordan Walker? What does this mean for him? Guys, he was never moving to first base.
Right.
I don't know where this came from, this notion that, like, oh, Walker's just going to bump down to first. He's going to be the replacement. The answer internally, if they didn't move Contreras or if Contreras had asked to be traded, it was always going to be Alec Burleson. That was your answer. Walker is a right fielder. That is right fielder or DH long term. Maybe 3 years from now, you move him down to first base. But you have to exhaust the opportunity for him in the outfield before you move him somewhere else. He's got too good of an arm. He's too athletic to just waste that talent at first base. Like, I don't know where this came from or why it became such a thing that he was definitely going to be moving to first, but that, based on conversations with people around the club, that was never their thinking, and certainly just watching the games myself, I don't get the sense that that is the guy that you want moving to first base. And he's never going to move to third either. They moved him from third base for a reason.
It would be a disservice to the long-term outlook for your team if you moved him to first base, because you've seen the arm at what it can look like. If anything, you work harder on getting him up to the level and standard that you need him at in the outfield, because he has that arm that can throw guys out from right field at home plate. You saw that happen multiple times 2 years ago. I guess it's the body type, and I guess it's to where people just viewed that the Cardinals kept sending him back down and bringing him up, but it was more offensive-driven than it was defensive-driven. I don't think this plugs as many holes as people are panicking about. Like, I think there's certain areas. I think the Nolan Arenado side of things plugs a lot more holes for the Cardinals than what Willson Contreras does at first base.
So that's the other thing I wanted to get to. There is also updated reporting. This comes from Derek Gould of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch earlier today, where he says that John Mozeliak has talked with the other three options. Because Willson Contreras said, I want to be here. What do I need to do if that's the case? And they told him, well, we're going to have to make a position change. He said, I'll do whatever it takes for us to be able to win and for me to be able to stick around. Respect. He's also, John Mozeliak talked to the three other players that have no trade clauses. Those players are Nolan Arenado, Sonny Gray, and Miles Mikolas. Mozeliak, quote, declined to detail their wishes, but said at least one other player was open to the club exploring interest from other clubs. Gould continues. Sonny Gray told the Cardinals that his preference is to remain with the team, according to his sources.
All right.
He then adds, the Cardinals have not advanced any trade discussions to the point where a player can, where they can go to a player with possibilities. However, the Cardinals are expected to gauge which teams have interest in Nolan Arenado and what they will offer according to multiple sources. At that point, the Cardinals could take that information to potential suitors to Arenado for his consideration. Okay. In other words, doing my detective work here, guys, Nolan Arenado told the Cardinals that he's open to being traded. Sonny wants to stay. Willson wants to stay. It is interesting. There's no information whatsoever available on Miles Mikolas, whether he wants to stay or go, whatever. Nolan Arenado,
whatever,
reading between the lines, and I'm not even sure it's reading necessarily between the lines. It's pretty clear and obvious. He's the guy that said, I'm open to moving elsewhere. If that's what you guys want to do, I certainly wouldn't be opposed to it. What do you make of that, Alex?
I think it's smart, the Cardinals need Nolan Arenado to be willing to go elsewhere. And the willingness needs to be more than, hey, I'll go to the LA Dodgers and that's it. That's what's best for this team. We've talked a lot about, moving on from Sonny Gray, moving on from Willson Contreras, opening up all of that money. And that's fine. But having a Sonny Gray saying he wants to be here, cool. Well, at least for the next couple of years, you've got a guy at the top of your rotation who you can rely on to be a good leader and win you baseball games. Willson Contreras' bat was significantly better than Nolan Arenado last season. That's a piece you'd like to have in here. And as I said earlier, what benefits this team in terms of opening up more holes that were filled is getting rid of Nolan Arenado. And it's not so much that you just don't like Nolan Arenado. And look, if the guy wants to stay here, it sucks, but this is the business. You need third base available to you to have the youth movement in terms of Nolan Gorman, Thomas Ajayci, whoever you want to play over there. But it also seemingly, if we're going through a refresh, whatever you want to call it.
Retool.
Nolan Arenado was in that with Colorado and hated it. Do you really want to keep that player around at $35 million if he does not want to be here?
The Cardinals have effectively locked in the following players to their respective positions, according to reporting from Derek Gould and from Katie Wu. Catcher is going to be Herrera and Pajes. First base will be Contreras. with the potential for Burleson to play there as well. But let's just say Contreras is your starting first baseman going into the season. Shortstop, Wynn. Left field, Newt. Right field, Walker. Center field, some combination of Ciani and Scott, but it sounds like Ciani is the guy that's going to start the season with the leg up over Scott. Makes sense. That's how they finished last year. Beyond that, that leaves second base, third base, and DH open. That's 3 positions for the following players: Donovan, Burleson, Gorman, Sajaci, and Arenado. 3 spots, 5 players available. You can make 3 spots work for 4 players. It's not hard to do. The Cardinals have done this in the past, and they end up getting everybody opportunities. And you know there's going to be an injury here or there. You'll figure it out. Donovan is one of those guys, and he could play first, second, third, short, outfield. Like he'd probably play your backup catcher position if you really needed him to. You can make this thing work. It is harder if there's 5 guys there. And that's what goes back to your thing on Arenado, Alex. You need that spot. You need those at-bats. Nolan Arenado, if healthy, will take 500 at-bats for the Cardinals next year. Flat out.
If not healthy, he'll take 250 at-bats for you.
Right, and you need those at-bats for J.C. Gorman, Burleson, Donovan. Those are the players that need to be getting those opportunities. So if he told you, I'm open to the idea of exploring a trade elsewhere, and the Cardinals now know what their budget is, and there's also reporting from Derek Gould where he says, hey, we're not in a place where we need to shed any more salary, but if we could, that would be a good scenario for us because it allows for a little more wiggle room. Makes me think the Cardinals are probably open to sending money with Arenado to get some of that off of the books. It's not a necessity, but that could help you get more in return for Nolan Arenado. And most importantly, it opens up the spot in the lineup. I actually think this is probably best case scenario for the Cardinals.
I do too.
All of this. Because I don't think you were going to get a massive haul for Willson Contreras because of the no trade clause. I don't think you were going to get a significant haul for Sonny Gray because of the no trade clause. You're probably not going to get a ton for Nolan Arenado, but that's fine because you're getting rid of the player opening up that spot. You could be a better team than a lot of people expected you to be next year. Not a great one, but a better team than people expected you to be. Still sell Ryan Helsley for the biggest return possible. And you're not having to tear this thing down to the studs. Man, all things considered, I don't know that you could have asked for a better start to the Cardinals offseason if you're a fan.
Yeah. I mean, this is about as positive as you can ask because what I assumed after, again, the 3 press conferences that were held was that this team was going to be torn down to its studs. You were going to see Goldschmidt, Arenado, Contreras, Sonny Gray, Miles Michaelis, Steven Matz. I thought they were just shipping guys out and starting from scratch.
Agreed.
A rebuild. But now it does feel a lot more like a retool to where, look, you're staying competitive. You've got some ideal pieces at the start of this, like Mason Wynn, like Brendan Donovan, and now you're keeping a Willson Contreras and keeping them healthy. But the biggest thing that people were sick of was seeing these minor league players that were supposed to be at the majors in AAA. Gorman, Jordan Walker. And now, if you've got a guy who's willing to at least listen in terms of going elsewhere, well, welcome to no more of this. Jordan Walker's going to the minors and figuring things out. He's going to be with the team because you've got positions available to them.
Is Nolan Arenado the Cardinals version of Torrey Krug?
I don't know if it's that bad.
I think Torrey Krug was...
What I mean by that is, upgrading from him will feel so good.
But I don't know if you upgrade from him.
It's different, though. It's fair. Arenado's
You get to see an unknown.
I actually think there's still going to be a decent chunk of the fan base that's upset about
Well,
it.
in the defense,
About trading Arenado?
Yeah, because I don't think, because what they're going to do is they're going to put Gorman there, right? We can agree in this room that's the starting third baseman.
Whoever it is,
He's
they're
not
going to
very well liked in St. Louis.
Well, and the defense, if the defense has hiccups, people are going to be upset.
because it's not a new Broberg was new,
Yeah.
fresh.
Exactly.
Torrey
interesting.
Krug, the reason Torrey Krug got, because the height of Torrey Krug was not because, we got to get rid of him. It was, we're getting rid of him and getting Travis Sanheim in return.
Totally.
That's where the height of get Torrey Krug out of St. Louis came from.
I actually do think it was also get rid of Torrey Krug.
Probably.
I think there
it
was
was
some of that for sure,
twofold.
and then it became, oh my God, you're actually getting a real return for it.
It wasn't as angry until you saw Travis Sanheim, and then it's like, son of a. And I don't know if that's
you.
Now I'm
I was
happy.
there too, by the way.
Now I'm happy as a clam.
Yeah, it worked out really well for the Blues, and I think this could work out really well for the Cardinals. I'm not sure that they're going to be a great team next year, but I think there's a chance they win, I don't know, this is not going to get anybody excited. They could win 82 games next year and do it in an interesting way. I think there's a lot of similarities with what the Cardinals are doing and the Blues now, but they have to stay committed to it. And we'll talk about one of the pitchers that might be the canary in the coal mine that suggests maybe they're not quite as committed to all of this as we would like to believe. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Coming up in about 15 minutes, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. 4 questions and answers. But next, the Blues are going back to Joel Hofer tonight, Alex. How do you feel about this goalie split and the way they're going about it? We'll talk about it next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendricks here, the Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action tonight as they take on the Utah Hockey Club. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Carver for puck drop at 7. The Sports Update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at Londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
Some updates on the St. Louis Blues for a morning skate today. It looks like Joel Hofer is going to be in net tonight. Alex, it also looks like Dylan Holloway is going to be back on the ice.
Hell yeah, Big D!
Holloway, Booch, and Neighbors is your top line. Sod, Kairu, Torpo, Fox, Walker, and then Texier, Sonny, and Bolduc. I still do not like Bolduc as your fourth-line player, but whatever. We can set that aside for a moment.
I think those are... I actually think Sonny's your third-line center. I think Texier, Sonny, and Bolduc is your third line, and then your fourth line is Fox, Torpchenko, Walker. Regardless,
however it is,
they're going to be using them 10, 11, 12 minutes a game. It's not going to come down to it.
The real story here is that Hofer is going to be in net tonight. Alex, what do you make of the way that they have been splitting the time and really them going to Hofer tonight?
So, big picture, I love that they're splitting the time. I mean, this is game number 14, and this will be the 5th start for Joel Hofer, and you've got 8 for Jordan Binnington. So, this is exactly what I thought they were going to do. You're going to get a bulk for Binnington, but it's not going to be he's the number one, Hofer just starts here and there, because that's what you need to do. You need to keep Binnington fresh so that when he steps in, that's where he's most competitive, like you've seen in these last couple of games. So I'm not going to deny what they're doing. This is how it should be run. I hate that they're starting Hofer in this game tonight. And I could be eating crow tomorrow when we do the show from Centene, and he goes out there and pitches a shutout against Utah. But I'm going to, in games that matter, and I know it's 14 games into the season, but when you take on a Central Division opponent, I want my best dude. And Jordan Binnington right now just beat the Toronto Maple Leafs and just beat the Tampa Bay Lightning. That is a guy who's riding confidently. And I know he's played a lot of games in a row, and this is probably where you want to give him a break and put Hofer in here, but you've got Washington on Saturday, and then you don't play again until Tuesday. The Washington game, I don't really care about those points as much as I care about the points against the Utah Hockey Club. You've got a realistic chance right now to widen the gap between you and Utah by 3 points because you're 1 point up on them. This is a game, and look, Jordan Binnington has lost both games against the Central Division this season in Minnesota and Winnipeg, and it hasn't looked pretty. So I can understand probably part of it where you're like, hey, let's get a different look in there, and Hofer hasn't played for a little bit. I just prefer going with my best guy in big games, and this Utah one's a big one in my opinion.
Hofer's last game was October 29th. I think that's really what it is, and he's only started that one game since October 19th, so we're talking about like 3 weeks, basically, of only getting that one start for the Blues. We've said this before. This is my belief, is that Jordan Binnington is just at his best when he's starting closer to 50 games than 60 games over the course of the regular season, Alex. I don't mind them going about it this way. I understand that Utah versus Washington, the split, maybe you'd like to see them go about it a little bit. I don't mind. It doesn't really get me riled up in one way or the other. T-Bone, where do you fall on this?
I would go to Binnington tonight. I think when you go against a Central Division opponent, I would always want to have Binnington as my number one guy doing that. I don't mind Hofer, but I don't think Hofer's been as good this season. You know, I think he's had like 2, maybe 3 good games, but for the most part, I feel like he hasn't been as effective as he was a season ago. So if I'm going to play him, I would want to play him in a game against like an Eastern Conference opponent, like when they take on Washington on Saturday, rather than going to Binnington in a division game and then in a division game in which you still haven't won a game in the Central Division.
Who do you guys think is better, Washington or Utah?
Well, Washington's better right now.
So wouldn't you want your better goalie to go up against them?
No.
I'm guessing that's the thinking. That's part of it, probably.
I always view it as I want my better goaltender going in the games that are more important.
Why do you view this as being more important?
Because it's a Central Division team. You haven't beaten a Central Division team yet, and these are 4-point swings. Yeah. Utah picks up 2 points in this one. They're 1 point up on you, and you've played the same amount of games, and you could look back on that being like, remember that game against Utah? Now, here's the other factor into this, and I know some people don't care what they played against the teams in the past, but both goaltenders have been bad against Arizona. Like, for the last 3 years, every single goaltender's had like an .865 save percentage.
Oh, we know.
So it's really hit or miss with these goalies, but Scotty Bowman used to say that all the time. Like, if it's viewed as a game that I should win and it's an easy 2 points, and I'm not saying Utah is, but I want my guy to go out there and get me those easy 2 points. And if you're telling me Washington's the better offensive team, but Utah's a team that you could possibly beat because they're in a little bit of a down spiral, give me my number one guy against that team, and then I'll take my chance. I mean, Joe Hofer's lived up to the expectation against teams that you thought you had no shot against winning, and I just view Utah as such a important game because you haven't beaten a Central Division team yet.
And the 4-point swing is a big thing for me.
Sure.
Because though every game is technically, I guess, kind of a 4-point swing, it doesn't really matter in the Washington case.
Yeah.
You don't really care where Washington finishes in the Eastern Conference. So if they end up winning that game, it does hurt you in the time being, but you don't care about them getting the 2 points. I do care about Utah potentially getting the 2 points, a team that I thought could potentially be a playoff team this year. If the Blues want to be a playoff team, I still view Utah's going to be a team that's going to be in that running. To me, it's a critical 4 points tonight.
A little bit of an update from Drew Bannister on Matthew Joseph, Blues forward, who's been out for a while now with his lower body injury. Said that he did skate yesterday at practice. Quote, he looked okay. He looked a little bit tender. He pushed through it. It's just getting on the ice, feeling good, and pushing through the pain that you have. We've just got to get him to that point. So it sounds like it's still going to be a little bit for Matthew Joseph. That's the latest update on him. No update that I've seen on Nicoletti. Potentially still.
Yeah, I don't think they're skating with the team yet.
Yeah, so it's still going to be a bit for him, but those are the two updates. Injury-wise, again, Dylan Holloway expected to be in the lineup, unbelievable, tonight against Utah. He did have this quote to Jeremy Rutherford of The Athletic saying, I just want to get out there and forget about it, put it in the past. Like I said before, I feel good. I'm excited to get out there and play again.
Throw all of the money on Dylan Holloway scoring the first goal of the game tonight.
Love it.
It's probably plus 1,800 as a first goal scorer. Throw it on him.
Circus Sports app in the state of Illinois.
Yep.
That is your place to do so. Coming up in 15 minutes, we're talking to Joey Vitale, Blues analyst for 101 ESPN, and of course, FanDuel Sports Network. But next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. 4 questions and answers here on BK and Ferrario. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. You guys get your questions in. We'll answer them here on BK and Ferrario. This one comes from the 314. Guys, do you believe that the Cardinals are better today than they were on opening day of 2024, even, or maybe especially, if we trade Arenado? Gray, Fetty, and Palante are head and shoulders, in my opinion, over where last year's rotation was. I don't agree with that because you've got to go one for one. It would effectively be Fetty versus like Gibson, and then Palante versus Lance Lynn. Kind of a wash, probably. You're getting it for cheaper, which is important, and that's why the Cardinals care about it. You're paying $8 million instead of $25 million for those two. So on a like value basis, definitely better. Are you a better team, though? I don't know. I think you're pretty similar. This is what I was saying in the last a couple of segments ago where I got laughed at, understandably so. I think you could win 82 games next year with basically the core that you have currently on the roster, not because I think they're going to be great, but because I don't think you took a significant step back. I think Herrera can help you offensively. I think the vibes are potentially going to be a little bit better next year, and we'll see what that looks like. But I don't know that you're head and shoulders better.
Yeah, I mean, on paper, I don't think you are. But in terms of how these players react on the field and throughout a season, that I just don't know because you're younger, and I think that's a good thing with some veterans around like a Willson Contreras, a Sonny Gray. Like, those are some pivotal pieces. But if you're trading away Ryan Helsley, your bullpen's not as good as it was last year, without question, until I see it. And then offensively, I won't know until I see him in action. So on paper, I don't think you are because you're taking away two Gold Glove players at first and third base and replacing them with a guy who's never played there and a guy who hasn't played there since the minors. So that defensively, I think, sets you back a little bit.
That is a good point. Contreras is probably going to have some errors on Mason Wynn plays that Goldie would have made. And that is potentially going to cost you some runs next year.
When let's actually hit the glove this year, not the dirt.
Yeah, right here.
Yeah,
right here.
in the chest. It's not moving. I actually think the rotation on paper will be slightly better. Like, I think Fetty's better than Gibson. Not by much, but a little bit better. And I think Palante's better than Lance Lynn. I know Lynn had like a 3.5 ERA. Let's be honest, he's not a 3.5 ERA pitcher. To me, he's still a 4 ERA guy. And then if you were able to upgrade and get McGreevy into the rotation over a Mats or Michaelis, it's better. Now, again, I still don't think it's a great playoff rotation, but I think it's better on paper. I think the bullpen could potentially take a step back, not just in the sense of if they trade Ryan Helsley, but also it's a bullpen. These guys aren't going to be this good again this season, and somebody's probably going to get hurt, if we're being honest. I think offensively, I think you're a little worse offensively, but I still think it's close. It's almost evenly split for me. The thing is, though, is I think last year their Pythag was 76 wins. I think that's what they really were as a ball club.
I just think that, like, where we differ, I don't know what this offense is going to be. I think there's a lot more downside to the offense this year than there was last year. It's possible it just totally falls off a cliff. If Gorman and Walker just stink, well, you're replacing Arenado and Goldie, who were roughly league average hitters, with guys that could be much worse than that. The ceiling is potentially a lot better, though, because Gorman could be 20% above league average offensively next year. Same thing.
40 homers.
Yeah. It could also be true for Jordan Walker, where you look back and you're like, oh, why were we so worried about that? Von Herrera, we talked about it yesterday, 2 days ago maybe. The guy hit 300 last season. If he just, I'm not expecting him to be a 300 hitter again next year. That is incredibly rare in Major League Baseball. But if he starts 120 games for the Cardinals next year, between DH and catcher, and ends up hitting 270 with 25 home runs, like, that totally changes the outlook for what that spot in your lineup could be. So I think that the ceiling for the offense is much better, even though the floor, there's just a much wider range of outcomes for your offense going into next season. All right, this one comes from me. I'm curious your guys' thoughts on this. Gavin Lux is potentially going to be the odd man out in LA. The Dodgers have announced that they're planning to move Mookie Betts back into the infield. They do have Tommy Edman expected to return next year. He's got one more year on his club control. They still have Max Muncy. They've got Freddie Freeman on the infield as well. They've got a lot of guys, and potentially Nolan Arenado. We'll see what happens there. Alex, is Gavin Lux somebody that you'd be interested in the Cardinals looking to acquire on the cheap, relatively speaking? Or is that just adding an extra guy to a spot that you already have too many players to?
Yeah, that's the latter. You have this guy. You have a left-handed hitter who last season hit 251 with a OPS plus of 101. Like, go down the list. It could be Brendan Donovan. It could be Thomas Ajayci. It could be J.J. Weatherholt in a couple of years. That is just adding more bodies to a position that you don't know already how to handle it. So, no, I would not be interested in this. I would much rather just keep as is rather than bring this in.
I think that's where I'm at, too.
Yeah, I am as well. And it's kind of twofold. One, I think you're too left-handed heavy already. I mean, we were trying to build the lineup for the Cardinals in the commercial break. There's a lot of left-handed lanes that you're eventually going to run into if you're the Cardinals. The other thing, too, for me is, can I get this out of Sajacy? Maybe not the amount of games that he played, 139, but can I have like a two-war player with Sajacy that hits 251 and is like 1% above league average, but he's right-handed?
I think that's a hope.
That's why I don't see the need for Lux.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, which do you think will go down as the better combo? Brady and Belichick or Mahomes and Andy Reid?
Mahomes and Andy Reid.
I think I'm there as well because they kind of work together. Belichick was more the defense. Brady was more the offense. I think because Reid and Mahomes are the guys that drive the offense since he's the play caller and Mahomes is the quarterback, I think they'll go down as a better
Because
combo.
every year it felt like throughout that Brady-Belichick, it was always an offensive coordinator goes get a head coach job, and then it's like, well, who's the offensive coordinator? They'd bring somebody in, it was good, but then you'd always seem to like fall, because wasn't it Shanahan there for a while?
McDaniels.
Or not Shanahan, McDaniels, thank you. It was like we bring back McDaniels because it worked. Like, it was never Belichick and Brady. It was always like Belichick, then Brady.
I think it'll be Mahomes and Reid, but I think it's going to be really close. It's just so much more time that Belichick and Brady had together. They started in 2001, continued until, 2018, I think was the final year. So let's call it 18 seasons that the two were together. Mahomes and Reid started in 2018. They would have to be together until 2036 to replicate the time that those two spent together. That's not happening. Like, it's not feasible. Even if he stayed for another 5 years, that's like 10 years working together versus 18. There's just a lot of time that you have to make up there. So I do think, for me, I look at the ceiling of what you were together. And so I would probably go with Andy and Mahomes. I'm also a homer. I understand anybody that would say, yeah, but 18 years is hard for me to replicate when there was only 10 potentially on the other side. So I think it's going to be one of those, like the GOAT debates that you talk about all the time. It's going to be one of those that it's a 50-50 depending on your perspective of it. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line to get involved in the show. You can check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. That's where the graveyard chat is off and running. Coming up next, we got to talk to Joey Vitale, our Blues analyst for 101 ESPN and Bally Sports Midwest. We'll get his thoughts on the goalie decision going into tonight. Dylan Holloway getting back onto the ice as quickly as he has. All of that, so much more with our guy Joey Vitale next year on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Happy to go out to the Callier and Thompson hotline. Joey Vitale staying busy today. He was in studio with TMA earlier. Now he's joining us live here on BK and Ferrario, and we certainly appreciate his time as always. Joey, how you doing today, my friend?
Joey!
What's up, boys? Yeah, I can't get enough of 101 today. Can't get enough of one. I hope the people aren't sick of me, because it's been an hour this morning with TMA folks. That was a lot of fun, and now I'm on with you fine folks.
I heard it in your voice there, Joe. You were really excited to be back with me and BK today.
Buddy, whenever I can get a chance to get on the FM dial on 101, are you kidding me? Come on, I rearranged my whole day for this.
So Joe, I know that you are probably the most fascinated person with the human anatomy. So when Dylan Holloway talked about the vagus nerve yesterday, inform us more about the vagus nerve.
Hey, didn't I say this on the broadcast? Curbs looked at me like I had 20 heads.
Yeah, he did. I was sitting right there.
Hold on. You did what? You called that this is what the injury was?
Uh-huh.
Absolutely.
Yep.
I mean, what else could it have been?
No, for sure. Good call, Joey. Good point.
Give me a call, will you? Curbs kept talking about the collarbone, and he's like, dude, I broke my collarbone in 6th grade, and he's like, taking his shirt off. I'm like, okay, hold on there, partner.
Whoa, put it back on, man. Easy.
Hold on there, Mr. Partner. And he started showing me his collarbone. I go, Curbs, yeah, I get it. I get that it was probably painful to break the clavicle, the most popular broken bone in the human body. But I get it. I mean, we don't need it. We don't need to call an ambulance for this. Like, this is something different. He goes, well, what do you mean? I was like, I don't know, but to me it's like a nerve, or it's some sort of like artery, because, it's almost like he couldn't move. And I said to him, every now and then, like if my wife is like rubbing my neck, or we're just in the car, and then if you ever she rubs like below my ear, like on the neck below my ear, if you ever like put your finger close to like your neck area below your eardrum, you actually, when she does it, my whole like body goes limp. Like I swear to you, I can't move. Like, I can't move.
Joey, I've never had this experience with my wife doing that to me. I gotta try it out.
This is how I had my second kid, Joe.
Yeah, it's like, the rubbing the neck, everything's fine. All of a sudden, she digs in like almost below your jaw. For everyone out there who's not driving, who can do this, get like your jaw section, your jowls.
Hold on, BK's doing it.
All right,
yeah, and kind of get underneath there where like, your glands get swollen when you get sick, if you will, and you can actually find a little spot there, and you actually can like, oh my god, like, but your whole arm goes limp. And if you think I'm super crazy, remember Austin Powers was like judo chop, judo chop. Remember that?
That's what I was thinking of.
Okay, so listen, this is kung fu. This is the dance of kung fu, where in kung fu they have these certain chops where they come at your neck. And it's, of course, Austin Powers made it really famous in a funny way, but kung fu, there is a chop practice where they come at your neck and they go for the exact same spot, which of course happened to Dylan Holloway. It's the same spot that my wife every now and then will trigger, where your whole body literally just shuts down. And I've been saying it for years, and of course it happens in the game, and no one's listening to me.
I didn't have the headset on. I was wondering why Curbs was taking his shirt off in the press box next to us, and now I know why.
It was a strange choice by him.
Yeah. Easy, Curbs.
Dude, it's collarbone. I'm like, it is not your collarbone. He goes, it is collarbone. I go, it is not your collarbone.
It is not your collarbone, and stop showing me your belly button.
Put your shirt on. It is not his collarbone.
Joey.
I'm Joey.
Joey.
I'm all kinds of
I'm
mixed
texting
up
my
right
wife now to talk to her about the vagus nerve.
Yeah, I'm trying. I got to text Kara. We got to work on this.
Yeah, we're going to work on the vagus nerve.
My vagus nerve more often. I didn't know this was a thing. I figured at some point over the last 2 weeks I would have heard about this on the morning after. I've been listening to that, and they talk about a lot of nerves. They have not talked about the vagus nerve yet.
I did not know the clavicle was the most important nerve from that show.
Are you surprised that Holloway's back on the ice today, Joey?
Oh, not at all. Not one bit. Because, like I said, if my vagus nerves get shooken up, and I'm right back being dad mode 2 minutes later. No, it really is kind of a frightening thing where it can kind of throw you off there for a little while. But I mean, listen, I didn't predict he'd be back the next game. This is a little crazy to me, but, especially with how violent hockey could be. But no, it's really, it's a nerve that when it gets triggered, it kind of shuts you down. But then as soon as it lights back up, you're completely fine again. So it's great to see that he's going to be back out there. This could have been a massive loss. And let's be honest, guys, the Blues have dodged a couple bullets here in the last week. One, of course, being Dylan Holloway. This could have been way more serious. Anytime you get into an ambulance, this is never a good thing. And the other one, of course, Philip Broberg, which we touched on quite a bit, that to me looked like a complete, and I got this medical one wrong. I thought this was a complete deconstruction of his knee. We're going to see him sometime next season. But that was, of course, great news, as he's only going to be out around 4 weeks where he'll be evaluated at that point.
So, Joe, on the goaltending side, when we saw that Joel Hofer was the first one off the ice, look, the Blues do this tandem, and it works really well, and it's keeping Jordan Binnington fresh. But for me, I just felt like this was one of those games that Jordan Binnington starts, mostly because it's one of these 4-point swings against a Central Division team, and right now Jordan Binnington is running pretty hot.
Yeah, this is going to be a tough decision for Dave Alexander and the coaching staff. And you asked the question, why would you pull a guy who is certainly – playing some excellent hockey? I think the answer to that is this. They know Jordan enough to know, and there has been plenty of examples of this in the last 6-7 seasons, even when he was in the minors, go back 7-8 seasons, that there is a trend with him that when he looks really good, you instinctually want to just keep playing that hot goaltender. But what they have found out, and again, this is through the experimenting of having him as long as they've had them, is that he goes 3-4 starts, and then all of a sudden his game starts to really fall off. He gets extra tired, his pushes aren't as sharp, and then that's where he allows these goals that so-called, quote-unquote, you love to have him have back. Or maybe he just misses it, or maybe he doesn't get over there in time, or maybe he's lacks a little awareness of what's around him because he is playing over and over and over. So that's where I think that the Blues they're not reacting, they're initiating. They're being proactive here, where they're saying, yes, you've been great. We love everything we've been seeing out of you out of the last 3 starts. But we know you well enough now that you need a night off. Take the night. We have a great backup goaltender who's playing some great hockey this year. And he can come in, he can win us this game. And then that way, for you, come Saturday night, again, you're on a big stage. It's going to be a great team coming to town once again. Saturday night home ice, it's got Jordan Binnington written all over it. So this, to me, guys, was not a decision where it's because of poor play. This was about the team being proactive and recognizing that this is a goaltender that needs more breaks, even though he will never ask for it. But if we push him too hard, it's going to hurt him in the long run.
Joey Vitale is our guest here on 101 ESPN. Joe, final question that I've got for you. The road to the NHL Winter Classic is going to start in about a month from now. It'll air on TNT leading up into that game. It's the Blackhawks versus the Blues this year, which means there's going to be a lot of Blues storylines that are featured throughout that. Out of curiosity, A, do you have any news to break? Have they been around the team at all lately? And B, what do you think are going to be some of the biggest storylines that they're going to be monitoring for that kind of a show?
Yeah, I don't know. I have not seen anything. I hadn't seen any really news of anything coming super quickly on this. But what I'm excited about is that this is another opportunity to grow this game, because you look at, I think the first show was the Hard Knocks. I mean, way back. I mean, this is the turn of the century here when Hard Knocks and the NFL kind of did their thing. I was a part of the Penguins when, I think was it called 36?
Yeah.
Maybe it was called 36 or 36 hours, something like that. But they followed James Neal around for a day and a half, and they followed different players around. I love what Netflix has done, highlighting the Kachucks. And, I mean, listen, that scene of Connor McDavid in the Stanley Cup final, you've seen the promos for it probably 100 times already, but about, Connor in the locker room trying to get his team pumped up in that Florida Panthers epic Stanley Cup series last year. So, you look at all those things and it continues just to promote this thing. I do think that there are opportunities for players to get more out on that platform. And guess what, guys? I think players want to do it. I think, and it's not self-promotion. It's just the understanding, the appreciation for what goes in and out of a hockey player's life. The fans love seeing, Justin Falk, for example, taking care of some kiddos in the morning, then heading down to the rink, or a post-game dinner with some of their friends. Maybe, let's say, the Colorado Avalanche come to town, and Braden Shen, who's very good friends with Nathan McKinnon, they go to a restaurant down in the Central West End and they have a bite together. I mean, all that stuff to me is just connecting people with the game. So it's 2 thumbs up for me. I don't have any idea really right now what storylines they're going to be going after, but it's exciting nonetheless.
Joe, real quick, our good buddy Chris Kerber texted us after we made fun of him for the first 10 minutes, and he said,
Tell him we don't talk about nipples on the show.
No.
That's exclusively morning show content.
He said, come prepared, boys. So, Joe, you and I are going to have to team up on this one because I think Curbs is a little upset with us.
Yeah. If I have to hear about his broken little clavicle one more time, if I have to hear about his little clavicle that he broke in grade school one more time, clavicle. Come on, everyone breaks their clavicle.
Have you broken your clavicle, Joey?
No, I never broke my clavicle. But I feel like the majority of people have broken a clavicle. It's the most commonly broken bone, and he went into this whole story how it was broken 3 different spots, and
Joe,
I don't know, he could have written a book about it.
Joe, we'll handle him later tonight. Don't worry about it, buddy.
Joey, have you ever broken a bone?
Hey, broke his orbital bone.
Oh, yeah. I've actually had a bunch of facial bones, broken noses. My favorite broken bone story was when I had about 3 different breaks really quickly. I had my nose been broken like probably 4 or 5 times. And when I finally retired, I just can't breathe through my nose. So I finally got my deviated septum from all the breaks fixed. And, my nose is kind of crooked. You guys have seen me. And I go into surgery, and they're going to fix my deviated septum. My wife kisses me, hey, good luck, love you too. Go in the room, I come out, and then, about 5-6 days later, they take the bandages off. And my wife looks at me. I'll never forget her look. She's like, what happened? I go, what? I go, what's wrong? She goes, it's still crooked. I go, yeah, I know. I had my deviated septum fixed. They didn't fix my crooked nose.
Didn't go in there for plastic surgery.
Yeah, exactly. I go, I didn't go see a plastic surgeon. They fixed my deviated septum, and she was so bummed. Anyway, talk about an ultimate downer coming out of the surgery. My wife was definitely heated that they didn't fix my crooked nose, which is still, by the way, crooked to this day.
And then she played with your Vegas nerve,
and you were
everything
good to
was all
go.
good.
Oh, yeah. She got in there on the old Vegas nerve, paralyzed on the right side all the way down to my toes. So I'll get her back, too.
You'll love to see it.
You forget about your crooked nose pretty quick when they play with the Vegas nerve, Joe.
Hey, Joe, appreciate the time as always, man. We'll talk with you again next week.
All righty. See you guys.
See you, buddy.
Got it. That's Joey Vitale joining us as he does each and every Thursday here on BK and Ferrario. Have you ever played with your Vegas nerve?
I haven't, and my wife has never played with my Vagus nerve, so it'll be a conversation.
It's something I didn't know it requires hospital stints.
You just played with it on air, so
I feel like this is one of those things. Like I would imagine the machine that we use for me to feel contractions, you're probably only supposed to use that in the setting of a doctor.
Oh no, let's put it on the Vagus nerve.
I feel like
let's find out what happens.
No, that is not what I was supposed to say.
Let's find out what happens.
I feel like you probably shouldn't play with your Vagus nerve unless you're in the presence of a doctor as well. But
Look,
I'm willing to try anything.
Playing with the Vagus nerve is fine. Getting hit with a puck for a 92-mile-an-hour slap shot, not okay.
That makes sense.
Just a little bit of look, don't use maximum rubber coming at you at 90+ miles an hour. That's the moral of the story.
Depends on your perspective.
Maybe.
Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll get into some NFL quick hitters.
We need to reset.
Would you consider the Willson Contreras signing to be a failure? I think there's some differing perspectives on this show. We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
If my Vegas nerves get shooken up, and I'm right back being dad mode 2 minutes later.
With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. So the Cardinals have made the decision to move Willson Contreras to first base. They announced that publicly yesterday.
What are you breaking over there?
Dude, you deal with the vagus nerve, not your microphone cord, okay?
Oh, wow.
That's how you end up in the hospital.
I think we're good. I apologize. Take two. So
Nope, we're not good. Push it again.
Boy, that was a BK moment if I've ever
swear I
seen
did
it with
not do
his
anything.
handiwork.
I swear you guys watched me. I didn't touch this thing.
Here comes Drew,
I
our
thought that
engineer.
was fitting for your handy skills. You know,
I think we're good. We're good?
Last time you said that, then it buzzed again.
All right. So the Cardinals have made the decision to move Willson Contreras over to first base from catcher. He will play there next year. He wants to be back. The Cardinals said, well, that's great. We'd love to have you, especially your bat. However, we don't really want you behind the plate. It brings up the question of if this signing was just a failure. Because Willson Contreras has been a really good hitter, but about a month into the experiment, the Cardinals decided, we don't want you behind the plate anymore. And then they decided to put him back behind the plate. And then last year, he gets hurt multiple times as he is behind the plate. T-Bone, the morning after earlier today, had some thoughts on this. This is some pretty strong comments from Tim McKernan.
He was signed, as you said, Martin, to be Yadier Molina's replacement. And for whatever reason, this one is celebrated. And I don't get it for the life of me as to why, because, again, it came at the detriment of the ball club. Why were they not successful in 2023? They didn't have pitching. Why were they not in a position to have the financial attitude to have pitching? Because they went in and overpaid what the market was for Contreras. Therefore, I don't get it. And then secondarily, what Buster Olney has been saying since the signing is that this is a guy that if the Cardinals would have done their research, they would have known that he was not necessarily regarded as a great catcher by the Cubs organization. That's why they didn't keep him around.
I think a lot of what Tim said there is totally fair. The Cardinals did sign him to be a catcher, and he hasn't really been a catcher for them, or they haven't clearly wanted him to be behind the plate. They've gone to Pedro Pajes. They've gone to Tres Herrera. Who was the other guy that Andrew Kisner got a lot of opportunities 2 years ago. At every opportunity, they have decided, we would like more of a defensive-minded catcher. And Alex, that was the opposite of why they signed Willson Contreras. The original idea behind the signing, Mo has mentioned this multiple times, was, hey, we thought this was an opportunity for us to go a different direction with what we have behind the plate. Instead of us focusing so much on the defensive side of things, we needed more of an offensive-minded catcher, right? Well, they got that and then hated everything about it. It's like when you have one type of a girlfriend and then you're like, you know what, I'm going to try something different. Sometimes swinging wildly in the opposite directions is part of the problem that leads you to keep having these relationship problems. However, the alternative was Sean Murphy. Have you guys seen what Sean Murphy did this year for Atlanta?
Yep.
Because the alternative was trading like Lars Nootbaar or Nolan Gorman. I think those were the two guys that were considered potential trade chips for Murphy going over to Oakland at the time. Murphy was really good in his first season with Atlanta, but really, if I remember correctly, it was basically a good first couple of months of the season. And then this past season, he was awful for them and lost his job as their starting catcher. So I don't know that I can consider it to be a complete failure because they desperately needed to bring in a catcher. They had two options. There were no great options clearly on the market if you don't consider Willson Contreras to be a good one. And he's still at least a really good bat. There's value in him as a player, even if it's not behind the plate. So I think they identified the right thing in terms of trying to find somebody that helps them offensively. I think what the problem is here is they are still valuing, in my opinion, the wrong aspects of the position. And it is something that I truly do fear about what it's going to look like next year with Pajes versus Herrera. They are going to, in my opinion, prioritize once again the defense, and it will be Pajes that gets the vast majority of the starts and not Herrera, despite Herrera doing the one thing that is more valuable, which is hit the baseball. So I don't think it was a failed signing, but it was a failed signing for what they wanted. It's hard for me to grade on that scale, though, because I don't think they're looking for the right thing here. Alex, how do you view it?
Well, you're right in the sense that the front office failed for what they were trying to accomplish. The signing was the polar opposite of a failure. I mean, Willson Contreras has been one of your best bats since the moment you brought him in, and they just leaned into the offense but didn't realize that the defense wasn't going to be there. But that's on them for not doing their homework prior to approaching this free agent. But here's the other thing. The failure for the Cardinals started way before the Willson Contreras signing. Like, the failure for the Willson Contreras, sure, you could have put that money towards other free agents. I don't have that free agent market up in front of me, but I don't really think there was this overwhelming sense of starting pitchers that were going to be desirable in that offseason, or at least attainable for the Cardinals.
I'll have to look back. I don't remember who the options were that offseason.
But here's where I feel like the failure stepped in. You relied on the pitching that was good in 2022, meaning like Adam Wainwright was just sensational for that team. You looked at a Miles Mikolas and thought 200 innings and a 3.2 ERA was going to be able to be sustainable. And none of those things carried over the next year. I can't look at Willson Contreras and say, well, the reason our pitching failed was because you weren't good behind the plate. No, the reason your pitching failed was because you believed Miles Mikolas could be in Cy Young conversations when he was realistically a pitch-to-contact type of pitcher. You relied on Adam Wainwright to go out there for you and throw another, at worst, 4.5 ERA, and he gave you a 7.4 ERA. You relied on Steven Matz being in your bullpen. If you want to talk about a signing that was a failure for the Cardinals, it was throwing the money at Steven Matz to be in the middle of your rotation and him never staying healthy for you. Willson Contreras was not Yadier Molina, but he never should have been Yadier Molina. You signed him to fill in for Yadier Molina, but this was an offensive catcher who was not good behind the plate. And I'd give him some credit. I thought he was better behind the plate.
I thought he was fine this past year.
Yeah,
he got hurt.
He was improved behind the plate. The year prior, there were issues, but you know what? He worked on it in the offseason. I give him credit for it.
I also think those issues, sorry to interrupt, I think those issues were vastly overstated. I think the issues behind the plate had more to do with your lack of pitching than it did to do with Willson Contreras, and they threw him under the bus because those guys were mad they were having a bad season. And really it was, hey, Jack, you're hurt, dude. It's not that Willson Contreras is putting down pitches that don't make any sense. It's that your pitches are not breaking the way that you want them to. Your velocity is not there the way that you want it to be. And so now you're lashing out in all directions, and Willson Contreras is the one that took the brunt of it.
Nailed it. This is not a failure for the Cardinals of bringing in Willson Contreras. This is just the Cardinals not adjusting the roster to benefit what Willson Contreras was in terms of fixing other areas. And I think you're going to look back on this decision as a Cardinals actually joining the new league to where you look at a player and you say, this guy's going to benefit us in a better spot rather than sitting here and try and force a round peg into a square hole.
T-Bone, I want to get your thoughts on this as well, but Alex, you mentioned what the opportunity cost was there where, okay, you don't sign Willson Contreras, maybe you do reallocate that money towards the free agent market for starting pitchers. Here were the pitchers that were on the market. Justin Verlander, never an option, $43 million a year. Beyond that, Jacob deGrom, never an option, $37 million a year. Carlos Rodon, $27 million a year for 6 years. I don't think the Cardinals were going to get into that market.
That
and even if even if they did, we'd be talking that being a failure for the organization.
Chris Bassett, 3 years, 21 per. Maybe.
I would have done that one.
Martin Perez, 1 year at $19 million. That was the qualifying offer. He wasn't an option for you. Taijuan Walker, 4 years, 18 per. Nope. Jameson Taillon, 4 years, 17 per. Nope. Nathan Eovaldi, 2 years, $17 million per. I think they were actually in on that market. That may have been the one they missed out on, and that would have been a nice addition. It's hard to argue otherwise. But beyond that, Zach Eflin, Tyler Anderson, Jose Quintana, Noah Syndergaard, Sean Manaea. Like, this is mid-tier pitching that we're talking about that the Cardinals are always in this market. It's 50-50 as to whether or not they work out. That's the case for everybody. I don't think the Cardinals missed out on some great signing other than potentially Eovaldi. That's really the one guy that would have potentially been available to them. If I'm not mistaken, I think Eovaldi might have been tied to a QO that offseason as well. I can't remember for sure. But
mind you, that team had their big three locked in. It was Jack Flaherty, who was healthy. It was Montgomery, who pitched great for you the previous year, and Miles Mikolas, who they thought was going to be a number one.
And beyond that, if you end up going out and trading for Sean Murphy, you now no longer have probably Lars Nootbaar. So then your offense takes a significant step back again. They ended up being bad, and so you would have looked at the Nathan Eovaldi deal as being a problem as well, because now you're stuck with this older veteran who's in your rotation, and it wouldn't have been good there either. At least now you have a piece to the core for the next 3 years or so. I don't know what Willson Contreras is going to be as a first baseman. Maybe it fails spectacularly and he's just a long-term DH. Hey, guess what? The bat still plays there too. So I don't think this was a complete failure of a signing the way that it was with Dexter Fowler or Mike Leake. This is the best Cardinals free agent signing they've had since 2007. Since Carlos Beltran, probably. Since like 2013.
Yeah.
Am I mistaken there?
No.
Is there somebody else that comes to mind for you guys?
Not one
No,
that
it's
I can
Beltran.
think of. And, I'm not going to put Albert in that conversation as
It was
a
a 1 year. Let's say
deal.
multi-year contract.
Yeah,
Best multi-year deal that the Cardinals have signed since 2013.
Yeah, I would say it's probably Beltran.
Peralta was after 2013, right?
It would have been in that range, but I think this is
Beltran
in
would have
play
been
with
better.
Yeah, and Peralta really fell off of a cliff, and he didn't provide any defensive value. I think you're right. I think it probably is the best signing since the Beltran move. And to your point, sure, they were looking for a catcher. They were also looking for that third bat. Remember, they didn't really have anybody in their lineup that you could just write in pen, we know what we're going to get from him. Because you think of the 2 years prior, you had Tyler O'Neill served as that third bat. You thought he was going to be that guy, dealt with injuries, but then you had Pujols step up into that role. Well, then he didn't really have anybody, so you signed Willson Contreras. And guys, over the last 2 seasons, the 2 years he's been here in St. Louis, minimum was 700 plate appearances. He is tied for 21st in Major League Baseball in WRC Plus at 133, ahead of names like Jose Ramirez, ahead of Francisco Lindor, ahead of Rafael Devers, ahead of Alex Bregman, who's going to get a big contract, ahead of Pete Alonso, who's going to get a big contract. He's been great for them offensively. Where the signing is a failure is just from the operation of the Cardinals' perspective. Not that the contract's bad. I mean, you're getting that guy for $18 million, and Pete Alonso's probably going to get more than that on the open market this offseason. It's just the operation from the St. Louis Cardinals again, where it was, hey, we're going to sign this guy to be the catcher of the future for the next 5 years. That's the guy that's the catcher for the next 5 years. And then not realizing he wasn't good defensively, to Tim's point, in that cut that we returned with, of everybody knew that. It's why when the Astros were having conversations about acquiring him, both in free agency and at the trade deadline, one, they backed away at the trade deadline because they were like, he can't learn a pitching staff fast enough. And two, if they were going to acquire him, they were going to put him in the outfield, which, guess what? You ended up exploring that option. So it's another one of those where the signing itself was good. Just like this is a different conversation, but the Sonny Gray signing, good signing. The order of operations to get to that signing were bad.
Totally.
Just like the Contreras signing. The operation of it and this idea of, we can fix him defensively, and then realizing you can't, and then trying to move him around, that was a bad operation by the Cardinals.
And if I could say one more, because the other failure by the Cardinals isn't Willson Contreras. The failure was looking at the development of your staff, because these are the guys that started games for you because Matz couldn't stay healthy, Waino couldn't stay in the games long enough, and Dakota Hudson was a failure. Zach Thompson, Matthew Liberatore, Jake Woodford. Those are the 3 guys that started games for you. You had 0 development, or you brought in 0 backup for your team because you believed all of these guys were going to stay healthy.
Yeah, they did Contreras wrong more than he did them wrong, ultimately. He was exactly the player that I expected him to be for the Cardinals. What changed was the expectations from the Cardinals. They said they wanted one thing. I mentioned this to you guys off the air, but it would be like the Cardinals living in the mountains in Colorado where it snows half of the year, and then buying a sports car because you're like, oh, this is going to be great. It's mid-June, 80 degrees, sunny outside. You know what? I just got a big bonus from my boss. I'm going to go buy a sports car today. So you buy it and you drive it around a little bit. You're like, damn, this thing's amazing. And then you get to November and you can't drive it for the next 6 months because you're in the mountains where it snows for the next 6 months. Like, that is effectively what the Cardinals did. And it's as if they didn't realize where they were. They didn't understand the surroundings. If you live in San Diego, yeah, go buy that car. You got to buy something a little different if you live in the mountains in Colorado. Somebody from the text line from the 314 said, guys, Tim's point was they signed him for too much money. They never needed to give him that much money. They could have saved $4 or $5 million if they wanted a DH or first base, if that's what they were going to ultimately put him at. I disagree with that because if you want this kind of a bat, that's the going rate. In fact, he's actually cheaper than
Alonso,
the going rate.
Bregman are going to get more than that this offseason.
And they're
$25 million plus.
Potentially worse bats.
Yeah.
So, like, you look back at the free agent class that he was in, a bat that probably would have compared at the time similarly to what Contreras would have been like a Jose Abreu. He's $19.5 million per year, 3-year deal, almost $20 million per year. That's what you pay for this kind of a bat, guys. And that was a first baseman, first base DH type. And he was 36 years old, I believe, when he
was
signed
showing
that deal.
signs of decline when he got that deal.
Absolutely. So if you want this kind of a player, hell, Alex's guy, Michael Conforto, who had been hurt before signing this deal, got a 2-year, $18 million per year contract. Cody Bellinger was hurt when he signed this deal. Big time bat, right? $17.5 million for a 1-year contract. And then signed last year for, what, 21 per year, I think it was?
Yeah.
If you want a big bat like this, it requires you to pay this kind of money. Josh Bell, not as good as Willson Contreras, just purely as a hitter. $16.5 million per year by the Cleveland Guardians. You will pay this kind of money for this kind of a bat. If the Cardinals wanted to trade him this offseason and he was open to it, there would have been teams that just are open to paying that kind of money for this bat. So I don't think the signing at all was a failure. In fact, it was a smashing success. He has lived up to every possible expectation that the Cardinals should have had for him. What changed was how the Cardinals viewed the position. They wanted something different suddenly, and they changed the terms on the player. That's not on Willson Contreras. That's on the Cardinals. It's going to be looked back on, I believe, as one of the best multi-year deals that the Cardinals have had in the last decade. That speaks to their lack of success in free agency. It also speaks to his success that he's had so far at the plate, and the hope is that that will continue as he transitions to being a first base and a designated hitter. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll dive into the junk drawer, but next, it's time for some NFL quick hitters here on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here, the Sports Center update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Blues back in action tonight as they take on the Utah Hockey Club. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Carver for Puck Drop at 7. And the Cardinals earlier today announced they've reached a new multi-year digital rights agreement with FanDuel Sports Network Midwest, which for the first time will include a direct-to-consumer streaming option for fans within the extensive Cardinals TV territory. The Sports Center update is driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
All right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters with Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. Alex, the big news today in the NFL is a potential injury that's taking place with the Jacksonville Jaguars, which, in my opinion, effectively ends their season. Sounds like there is the potential for Trevor Lawrence to get surgery on his shoulder. This was an injury that just popped up kind of out of nowhere, seemingly missed practice earlier this week. And they were like, we're just going to see where this thing goes. And then suddenly today, of all people, Jay Gruden tweets out, the former Washington football coach, tweets out, hey, it sounds like Trevor Lawrence is getting surgery on his shoulder. Hope that my sources are wrong. Like,
Where'd that come from, Jay?
So Trevor Lawrence might be out for the rest of the year, if that is indeed the case. It sounds like he's at least going to be missing this week. Alex, what do you do with the Jaguars at this point in time? If they're without Lawrence, this thing's over, man. The next 2 weeks, they've got Minnesota and Detroit, and then it's Houston coming out of their bye.
Yeah, it's over. And you just paid the guy. So you're past the opportunity to really do anything now. Now, you just need to take your lumps and just hope you're bad the rest of the season and then make a decision at the draft of where you're going to go, because like it or not, Trevor Lawrence is your guy now. That's the center of your franchise. You made that decision this year. You're going to have to find a way to get out of some money situations. That's why I was surprised Christian Kirk wasn't dealt.
He got hurt.
Oh, that's right. So he
Broke
was.
his collarbone.
And
Remember, everybody breaks their collarbone.
Yeah, that's true. I wonder if he rubbed his vagus nerve afterwards. There's not a whole lot of pieces that if you're them that you can look at and you'd be like, well, let's sell this off and restart. Like, they're in the middle of a retool without even saying that they were entering a retool.
Yeah, I don't know what you do, because you got stuck because you paid Trevor Lawrence. And I thought that was a mistake at the time.
Same.
I don't think he had done anything to prove he was a franchise quarterback. But these teams get stuck with quarterback number 2021 and are so afraid to go into the abyss that is the quarterback carousel, and they end up giving bad contracts out. Look at Miami and what they gave to Tua. They did the exact same thing, and now they're stuck. And to your point, that you can't really rebuild when you got this guy on his contract. You got to keep pushing because he's there. So now that he's out, when you get that high pick, you trade it back and accumulate some more assets. Maybe there's a wide receiver that you really like, or maybe you get a piece that you can add to your defense. I don't know what you do if you're Jacksonville.
Here's the dead cap hit if they were to trade Trevor Lawrence at any point over the next
got to be huge.
4 years. First year, $100 million.
Yeah.
Second year, 85, then 64, then 42, which is finally sometimes that they could maybe consider doing that. Now, if they do the thing where some teams are doing the post-June 1 or whatever, they could make this work a couple of years from now. But, dude.
Yeah, you should have never signed this guy.
Basically, you can't trade Trevor Lawrence until 2028 when he's 29 years old. Yeah. You have him. You're tied to him for the next 4 seasons, basically. Man. It's not a good situation. If I'm him, I don't want to play the rest of the year, frankly. You can't do that as a quarterback. We just saw another team in the AFC South bench their quarterback because he opted out of a play, much less a season. But this is just such an atrocious situation with the Jaguars. They need a new GM. They need a new head coach. I don't know who they're going to be able to get, but they've got to start anew.
Time to rally around Mac Jones.
I mean, you asked this question. Oh, I forgot that he's there.
He could win the Super Bowl still.
There you go.
Sweet.
First one from that class.
Still in play.
My next comment then is not going to really hold up to this, but I was going to say, to your point on having him, quote unquote, opt out of the season, he should, because you led this with Jacksonville season. Jacksonville season's already over. Yeah. They're 2-7. Let's not fool ourselves,
but
everyone.
the AFC is so wild that unless you're a top 4, you
I don't care. No,
chance.
they're 3 games back of the Broncos, and the Broncos are clearly a better football team than them.
That 2021 draft class, man. So many good players, and then there were quarterbacks selected.
Yikes.
Good players. Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Penei Sewell, Patrick Surtain, Devontae Smith, Micah Parsons, Rashawn Slater. Like, these are
Don't take a quarterback.
just haymaker after haymaker after haymaker, studs across the league.
Right, and then the quarterbacks.
The quarterbacks, Trevor Lawrence, Zach Wilson, Trey Lance. Those were the top 3 selections in this draft, by the way. And then Justin Fields at number 11 overall. Mac Jones, number 15 overall. Whew. There were some regrets. Some mistakes were made.
Of those 5, just real quick, how many of the coaches are still there? Jacksonville, that wasn't...
Well, Lance was in San Francisco,
The Jaguars
right?
at the time had, what's-his-face, Urban Meyer.
Urban Meyer, so he wasn't there
Lance was in
anymore.
San Francisco.
So Shanahan's still there.
Zach Wilson had Saleh.
Gone. Mac Jones was Belichick. Gone. And then who was the 5th one?
Chicago with Justin Fields, and they fired
he'll
their
be
coach
gone.
as well. Well, the guy that
was gone.
hired him was gone already.
Oh, who was it then?
Who was their coach at the time?
I thought that was Eberflus on the...
Matt Nagy.
Nagy.
He
Nagy
was
was
still
the
there?
coach, yep.
Wow, he got 2 quarterbacks.
Yep, he was the coach.
He had
at the time.
Trubisky and Field. Oh, man, he failed twice.
Yeah, exactly.
You really ain't going to
You
make
don't
it.
come back from that one.
They need to do everything they can to hire Ben Johnson this offseason.
Yeah.
The offensive coordinator for the Detroit Lions. That's got to be the direction that they had. All right, next thing up here. Big game tonight. No joke. Big game tonight in the NFL. Bengals on the road, 7:15, Amazon Prime. Instead of watching this, you could actually watch this and listen to the Blues versus Utah right here on 101 ESPN.
Just
You
have
can hear
TV on
pregame
mute.
coverage for that one with Alex Ferrario at 6 o'clock, and then at 7, you'll be able to watch both games simultaneously. Be able to watch the football game and hear.
Come on, man.
I'm on Mucinex right now. It just jumbles my brain, and I apologize. Bengals are a 6.5-point underdog in this game at Baltimore. Alex, how does your perspective on Cincinnati change depending on what the result is of this game tonight? Like, if they win this one on the road at Baltimore, are you back in? We ready?
What are we saying back in? Back in playoff team? Back in a Super Bowl team?
Playoff team.
Playoff team, sure.
Super
But
Bowl
it's
team.
hell no. I almost dropped an F-bomb there. That would have been bad. There's no way I am. If you go out there and beat the Ravens, awesome. But I'm not going to put any stock in until I see 2-3 weeks put together to where both offense and defense, you look like you figured things out. Because when I look at the Chiefs, when I look at the Bills, I would probably just put those 2 teams. They've got their ish together. The Ravens might have some moments on defense that I'm just not too sure. And frankly, it's Lamar Jackson, so I can't trust him. So no, I will not be in on this team being a Super Bowl team. I will look at them and say, you're the 4th best team in the AFC.
Second highest total of the season, this game. 52.5 is the over-under in Vegas. The highest total was Rams versus Lions at 53.5.
That checks out. I think a win tonight, and I'll agree with Alex. I will go, okay, I can see them as a playoff team. Now, it's got to be a good-looking win. It can't be just this ugly mess. Their offense does nothing. They win like 7-3.
I don't think they're capable of that with their defense.
I don't think so either, but I do want to throw in the caveat. Like, the offense has got to start looking like what we thought it was going to. And I understand, like, Higgins is out tonight, right? If I'm not mistaken.
That's the expectation.
Yeah. Now, when they can get in that kind of Super Bowl conversation again, is if they can win their next 3 games. The Ravens, at the Chargers, and then if they can beat the Steelers and the offense looks like a well-oiled machine against that defense, all right, now I'll have that conversation again about you potentially being back in the Super Bowl conversation.
Here's how their last 4 games have gone. 41-24 win, 37-17 loss, 21-14 win, 17-7 win, 41-38 loss. At no point this season have I seen back-to-back games where the Cincinnati Bengals look like a well-oiled machine.
Fair. They did score 38 points and forced overtime against Baltimore 5 weeks ago. This offense, when it's clicking, looks really good, but that offense was with T. Higgins, and it just looks different when he's not out there. The Ravens defense has had some serious issues this season. They are getting more healthy with their corner situation, but you know you're not in good shakes when you're trading for Tre'Davious White. T-Bone, you saw him with the Rams. He was terrible this season. Like, genuinely one of the worst corners in the NFL.
It was so bad, Sean McVay basically was begging the league to trade for him.
Correct. And they traded multiple 7th-round picks for him, which tells you there was no market for him. None whatsoever. So it changes my perspective a bit. If you're able to win this game without T. Higgins, man, I'm back in. Not that I was ever out, but I'm all in at this point. If you can do this on the road at Baltimore
Don't
tonight.
you remember
Big
BK's game last time? It was like, look, Bengals win this one. They're going to win the rest of the season.
Well, if they win this one, watch out. Watch out. They've got the Chargers and Pittsburgh in the next two. Hey, man, gets 24, they can't beat you. And then Dallas, Tennessee, Cleveland, Denver, Pittsburgh down the stretch, run the table.
The problem with this Bengals team is they'll win versus the Ravens, lose versus the Chargers, lose in overtime versus the Steelers, and then win out.
We are not talking enough about the Chargers, by the way. That's a team that you said got their ish together. Mm-hmm. They've got their stuff together. That is just a really well-run operation. They're not a great football team, but they know exactly who they are. They're going to run the football. Justin Herbert on third down is going to make some conversions for them. And then defensively, they're awesome, man. That is a really good defense. Their defensive coordinator, I think, is going to get some talk as a potential head coaching candidate in the offseason as well. All right, that's what we got for you for NFL Quick Hitters with Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. Coming up next, it's time for the Junk Drawer here on 101 ESPN. Alongside Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. Got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Time to dive into the junk drawer. Alex, there is a story that I was reading the other day about this massive apartment that has been built in China, and their goal is we want to build a place where basically you never have to leave. We're going to have a grocery store in here. We're going to have like everything. We got a barber shop in here. We've got everything you could ask for in this apartment building. The only reason you would want to leave is to go take a walk, like to get outside. But otherwise, everything you could need is going to be here.
That sounds great.
I'm curious. Hey, this sounds like Wall-E. Some of the...
No, this sounds like The Shining, and I don't know if people know what happened to Jack Torrance, but... Things got a little insane, if you know what I mean.
When did The Shining come out? Was
84, I think.
40 years?
86?
I mean, I've never seen it, so yeah, no spoilers.
Shining, 1980.
1980.
Damn, it's been 40 years.
I'm sorry, Mrs. Torrance.
What is your guys' top priority? Like, T-Bone, you're living in an apartment. What's your top priority when you're looking for a place to stay?
Oh, moving forward, it's going to be having laundry in the apartment, not a laundry complex I have to drive to. Speaking of.
There we go.
I was going to do laundry after the show. I think it was on Tuesday. So I get there, I go get the stuff. Everyone was filled up. And some of them were like, where it was like, I would have had to take it out because I could tell like it'd been in there for a while, but I wasn't going to be that guy.
Thank you.
So I push it back. Oh, there are times I will do it. But I was like, you know what? I'll just do it another day. It's not that big a deal. It was just one of those where I had time. But that's the number one thing I'm looking for moving forward would be
Alex,
that.
when you guys were looking for a new house, what was the top priority for you? Because we wanted an at least semi-finished basement.
Yeah.
We had to have a little bit of a basement so that way we have the expansion area where when we have a kid, we could put some stuff down there. We needed that. We looked at a couple other places that were slabs. Whew, not enough space.
Yeah.
Not enough storage. What was your top priority for you guys?
There was two things. One, it was a decent-sized backyard because at the time we were talking about kids, so we wanted an area for them to play. But it was the kitchen because over these last 3-4 years, I have gotten big into cooking. And the kitchen we had at our first house was about the size of this room. Like you'd be at the oven and you turn and it's the other side. There was no space. So my biggest thing was kitchen because I wanted the opportunity to cook a lot more.
We wanted upstairs to be hopefully recently renovated so that way I don't have to do any of it. I don't want to have to do it.
That's a good thing to have.
We are now renovating our basement. That's the next thing that we're going to be doing, and I'm going to have to do a bunch of stuff on that. We did little man's room. I redid his closet, redid the flooring, redid a bunch of stuff in there. I am somehow capable of doing it. It's not something that I want to have to do, if possible. So the next place that we're going to live in, whatever that is, 10, 15, 20 years down the road, potentially, we got in during COVID, got a good interest rate. Man.
Same.
So next place we go, we have a carport, not a garage.
Yeah, we had that in our first house.
Game changer, man. Having a garage, I didn't realize how important that could be. And then I walked around the other day on our cul-de-sac because we're at the very end, so we don't have any reason to go all the way down the rest of the way, but we took Luca for a little bit of a walk, and I realized we're the only one in our cul-de-sac that doesn't have a garage.
Did they build it from the carport? Like, did they take their carport? Because that's what
everybody else, at some point, somebody went in and built the garage where the carport used to be.
I was our old house. We had the carport, and all of our neighbors had the garage. And Katie was like, this would be great. And I'm like, no, because I know what's going to happen. This isn't going to be, like, structurally correct, and then we're going to have to refix it before we sell. I said, nope, just leave the carport. We'll figure out the garage. If we're going down the sense of, like, what that one was, where I never have to leave my house, like, top priority, give me a gas station.
Oh, really?
Give me a gas station in the garage.
Store.
I think I would go grocery store, too. Like, I got to go get groceries today.
Yeah. I don't mind the grocery store, though, even though I know I complain about it an awful lot. I know.
Stories from the grocery store.
You know what?
I think you're a fraud.
Here's what I hate. No, here's the thing. I enjoy the grocery shopping. I don't enjoy the people at the grocery store. So you guys are right. This would probably be it. Here's what I hate the most, though. When you get in your car at 7 a.m. and you're like, oh, I don't have any gas. And then you got to stop.
I will say, actually, now that I think about it, depending, like you said, this was a really big apartment complex.
It's huge. It's like 30,000 residents.
Yeah,
it's massive.
Crap. One thing that would suck about that is then lugging the groceries up. You know, you got to wait on the elevator. You're holding bags.
Something I've always thought about with New York. Like,
I would think that
live
would
in New York.
And
I
those
think that
people go
would
like,
suck.
I think those people go like each day to
I
the
know my
grocery store and
sister
get something little.
when she was in,
right?
yeah, my
'Cause you
sister
can't
when she
bulk.
was in college, she went to Illinois State, and her first year she had to live in one of those freshman dorms. She was on like the 30th level, so she had to like get groceries, and then she'd have, of course, she had to park the car further away, so she has to walk it through the outdoor, and then you get up there. I don't think that'd be enjoyable. It's not a problem, but it is just
sucks.
annoying. Like, I live on the second level of my apartment complex. There's just 2 levels. It is annoying to have to lug them up the stairs when you got all of them.
You master the art of having to like carry
Yeah.
like 17 bags at once.
And then I get up there and I go, oh, now I have nothing to open the door with.
Living in a city like New York, where like if you're actually living in the city, right? I'm talking living in like Manhattan. The idea of, first of all, having to take the subway 20 minutes or whatever to get your groceries and then get back onto the subway to take them home and then have to lug them up to your apartment. It's just so foreign to me. Like, I can't even compute what that living situation is like. Clearly people love it. Otherwise, it wouldn't be expensive. People wouldn't want to live there. But it's just so different from anything that I've ever
I
experienced.
just don't
in my
know how
life.
you do families there, because like that, like we shop in bulk for the week. So like we go, we
Same.
shop, like I don't know how you would do that where you've
Well,
got kids and you're traveling them around. Like that's not an easy thing.
I'm sure if you have a family, it's a little more different because like my uncle lives in Chicago, and when he goes to work, he takes the train, connects, and then goes to work. And walks to work a little bit as well. But like when they go grocery shopping, because they have an area, I guess it depends. If you have an area where you can park your car, that's the only time he drives around the city is when they need to go to the grocery store. That way they don't have to do what you're talking about, lug it onto the subway.
Somebody said they go to bodegas. Sure, but there's other times where you have to get other stuff. Like it's not just milk, eggs, like the staples, right? Bread.
I guess the nice thing in the city, you could do, what is it? Uber
the
Eats.
delivery stuff.
Yeah, whatever
it's
it's
just
called.
expensive.
Somebody
Yeah.
said you
Like
go
you're
out to
already
eat when
spending-
you're there. That's expensive too in New York.
Sure. And I guess if you live in New York and you're living on Manhattan, that's
You can't afford
the
it.
last thing that you are worried about is how much your groceries are going to cost. But just it's such a different way of life. I guess that would be the thing that I would be looking for if I'm in New York is, hey, build me a high rise that you've got the grocery store right here so I don't have to go anywhere else. With Alex and T-Bone, I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so if we still have ears.
Ah, Jesus, man.
Wrong button.
Felt like that hit my Vegas
Wrong
nerve.
button. Yeah. Hold on. I need to rub it. BK.
It hit
Here,
mine,
can you
too.
rub that? Vegas nerve. Was that awkward for everybody?
Coming up
Change
next,
the
are the
button now.
Cardinals already pivoting from their stated goal? We'll talk about it here on 101 ESPN. So are the Cardinals already pivoting from their previously stated goals with Alex and T-Bone on BK? John Mozeliak said the following to Katie Wu of The Athletic, Alex. Quote, our team is not going to look all that different. Okay. It's editorializing by me.
Lies.
But obviously, there have been some changes that have been made. Part of this is going to be where guys like Palante, he's going to have an opportunity to start. Matz is somebody that we're hoping can rebound physically. We traded for Fetty, so we obviously think a lot of him. We were always rushing to find the next better thing. Now we're going to say, no, we got a little bit of time. Let's see what we really have. It continued beyond that, though. This is a quote that he said to Derek Gould of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. Quote, our team isn't going to look all that different, right?
Tone.
Are you asking me, or?
There will be some changes. Part of that is going to be from a guy like Palante getting the opportunity to start. Matz, we're hopeful, blah, blah, blah. He then continued, though. McGreevy, right now, I don't think it's necessarily guaranteed he's in our rotation just because of who we have in front of him, but it wouldn't shock me if he's on the team in some form, end quote. Now, I'm not going to freak out about this stuff because we know Mo speak is a thing. And Mo says things publicly that he wants not just the fans to see, but other teams to see. And he's not going to reveal what his plans are fully, nor should he. It's not smart. You lose all of your leverage when you do it that way. But McGreevy should start for this team next year. If you're going to go through a retool, McGreevy should be one of the biggest beneficiaries of doing that. Like, this changes nothing for Burleson or Gorman or Donovan. Like, those guys were already going to get everyday opportunities next year. The guys that should really benefit are Ivan Herrera behind the plate, because now it's not a huge deal that he can't throw runners out. Let's find out if you can build on what he did last year. Let's see if he can be a 300 hitter. And Michael McGreevy, who otherwise would not have had a spot in your rotation, but now should have a spot in your rotation. So, Alex, what do you make of some of the quotes that came out yesterday from the GM meetings? This goes beyond just the Willson Contreras decision. This is really about the direction that they're heading as a team in 2025.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little confusing. Like, the Michael McGreevy one is what gets me. And again, you're right. Like, you can't sell the farm at GM meetings because now you can't trade certain pieces because they know that you're trying to get rid of them. But if you're going a youth movement, a refresh as they called it, what that means to me is you're putting all of these guys that fans have seen small sample sizes of and said, boy, that guy looks like he could be something. McGreevy, Palante last season that finally got the stretch. Ivan Herrera, Thomas Sajaci, Jordan Walker, Nolan Gorman. All of these guys become everyday players for you. But if you're going to go down the path of looking at Steven Matz that you hope can rebound, if you're bringing in Eric Fetty and he's here, and you're talking about shifting over Willson Contreras and Nolan Arenado's unable to move, then aren't you just moving a couple of pieces around on the checkers board and then just saying like, hey, we're doing it different, but we're really not? Because to me, to be doing this different, one, you're emphasizing the minor leagues, and that's something we're not going to see right away. It's going to take some years. But on the major league club, if you're trying to sell me a goods that this is a refresh, then I expect to see Michael McGreevy in the rotation and starting every fifth day, because that guy is part of the future, and he's already shown you the ability to pitch at the major leagues. I expect Gorman and Walker and Nootbaar and Wynn and Ciani and Victor Scott all to be playing every single day, because otherwise you're just doing the same thing you did last season. You're just saving money.
Yeah, I think they are kind of pulling back a little bit from what they wanted to do, and I think it's because they know what the TV situation is.
Kind of feels that way, right?
Yeah, I think they were originally like, all right, let's blow this thing up like fireworks. Contreras gone, Gray gone, if we can. I mean, those guys sound like they were going to deny those.
And to be fair, some of that was us speculating.
Yeah.
They never said that.
Well, I mean, they hinted at it. Like,
They did
we need
3
to go
press
with
conferences about cutting money.
guy. Yeah, we need to cut money. We don't know what our revenues look like, and we want to go with a bunch of young guys.
We're letting all of these guys go. They said we need to have conversations about what they want to do. Because if they don't want to be here while we're giving opportunities for young guys and not going out and trying to get better, well, then we will work with them on that. They never said we're just going to send these guys out or we want to move these guys around. That was us speculating from...
Sure, but to be fair, they would never say that either because of the levers that we're just talking about with, like, Matz.
Fair.
Because, like, the Matz thing, like, I don't read too much into that comment because there's, like, 3 different avenues to do this. We talked about, I think you mentioned this yesterday or 2 days ago, BK, of, like, the Gibson, the Lynn, the Middleton, letting those guys go, declining their options and saving $30 million. Okay, we knew we were going to cut payroll, and that was, like, the path of least resistance. Because they have a path with least resistance with the Matz spot as well. Matz can either be here and start, Matz can be here and be in the bullpen, or you can trade him. And now there's no money saving involved in 2 of those 3 moves. But again, I think based on the way Mo talked yesterday, they're no longer in the, hey, we have to cut payroll. We're good if we don't make any more moves in terms of cutting guys away from this team. And in that case of the scenario, what I just talked about, maybe some of it is, hey, let's just have McGreevy come in and maybe we'll go with a 6-man rotation to start the year. Or we'll just see how it plays out in spring training. Maybe he's not as good in this spring training. Maybe that's the case. He needs to go back to the minor leagues. Or, you know what? Hey, Matz is a bullpen arm. Maybe we can get more value for him at the trade deadline.
Maybe you just move Matz to the bullpen and you say, hey, Steven Matz is an $11 million bullpen arm.
Yeah.
There's a lot of $11 million bullpen arms. A lot of them.
Yeah.
So maybe at the deadline, he becomes a $5 million bullpen arm. Somebody's willing to take that on at the deadline. He could be a high-leverage guy. You put him into the 7th inning, he's throwing 95 from the left side with a decent breaking ball and a changeup that you can trust. That's a really valuable commodity to have at the deadline, especially on an expiring deal. So there's some value there for sure. Fetty is another one that I would look at and be like, hey, I still think he's a pretty valuable trade chip. I know the Cardinals continue to say they're not interested in trading him. We'll see. We'll see $7.5 million in an offseason where everybody seems to be cash strapped for a solid number 3 option in your rotation. We know the Astros were interested in him last year at the trade deadline. I would bet there are other teams that would be interested as well. Texas, they're pulling back their payroll a little bit this offseason. Maybe he's a guy that they would be interested in.
That's one of those guys that I feel like, because we talked about holding on to Ryan Helsley until the trade deadline, and I didn't like that. Fetty's one that I would hold on to the trade deadline. Because
I just don't think that you get the same return for starters as you do for bullpen arms.
And maybe not.
I don't think Fetty, when we talked about when the Cardinals acquired him, it wasn't like, hey, look at the ceiling that just went up. It was kind of, okay, you got Eric Fetty.
Right.
In the offseason, that's more important because you need that kind of guy for the full season.
Fetty's value is the innings, which are more valuable on opening day.
Exactly.
The value of a guy like Ryan Helsley is the upside of having a dominant closer, which can help you get through October. His real value for you is once you get to the postseason, you just want him to be healthy. So for a lot of teams, they'll wait until July to go get that guy, the teams that are true contenders, because I want the guy that's pitching the best when I need it the most.
And everybody
the
can
value
afford
is
him.
October. Exactly. So I will be curious to see how they play this the rest of the offseason. I do think there is a little bit of a pivot that's happened here. I don't know how much of a pivot, but I think there's some pivot that's taken place because of the quotes that we saw from John Mozeliak yesterday, where he effectively said, hey, if we needed to go into the season with this payroll, it sounds like they'd be okay with it. It's just a matter of if there's some more wiggle room that exists there, like if Nolan Arenado, there's a deal that can be done. If there's a deal for Fetty or Helsley, et cetera, where we think it makes us better for the long term, maybe they'll go ahead and do it. But right now, given what they did earlier today, where they signed this deal with FanDuel and they're going to be there long term, or at least for the next couple of seasons, and they now have the direct-to-consumer model as well here in the St. Louis TV market, I think the Cardinals are okay where they're at. I don't think they feel the need to just get rid of as much payroll as humanly possible. It's something we talked about the other day. How much do you really need to shed? They've already shed like $50 million from their payroll.
Yeah, and the only thing that I wonder too, like I do think there has been a little bit of a pivot. I also wonder if like they looked at it and they said, what's the path of least resistance to cutting payroll while also getting the refresh started? It's basically been what they've done.
Yeah.
You know, like the catching situation. Okay, well now Herrera and Páez can kind of split that. You look at first base, that's the one where they've kind of clogged it up a little bit.
But if you trade Arenado, suddenly it's pretty easy.
Exactly. And then again, like my question of like, is it the path of least resistance? I mean, they've talked to the 4 guys that had the no trade clauses, and if Arenado says, hey, I don't want to be a part of it, okay, well, boom. Now, there we go. Now, here's our next path of least resistance. Now, that's going to be a complicated trade, don't get me wrong. And then to what we were just talking about with Steven Matz, if you don't move him, well, then you can just move him to the bullpen. There's the path of least resistance. Like, it's been a very, I don't know if easy is the right word, but it's been a smart offseason by the Cardinals if you're going into this refresh.
I don't know if it'll work. I totally understand skepticism. They have not earned anything beyond that. But so far, what they're saying, what they're doing, a lot of this makes sense, man. And I also appreciate, candidly, that they're not tanking. I hate when teams go out and do it. I think it's totally unnecessary, and it's the team selling you on hopes and dreams. And as a fan, man, don't sell me on nonsense. You can still put a competent product out there with guys that are 26, 27, 28 years old that aren't going to be terrible in 3 years without having to go all the way to the bottom and save all of the money for you. That's not about us getting better. That's about you saving cash. That's what teams have done a really good job of selling to fans as a PR campaign effectively is, hey, we got to go all the way to the bottom. Otherwise, how could we possibly win? No, you don't. You can win 75 games, get a top 5 pick, especially now that there's that lottery aspect to the draft, and end up 3 years from now being really, really, really good whenever you're ready to push. And I think that's what the Cardinals are trying to do right now.
I think that's why people respect the Blues so much, because they tried to do this thing quick and not put people through that. And I do give Cardinals a lot of credit if that is the route that they're going to go, where one bad year you cut some salary, next year maybe you're willing to put a little bit more out there, but you're trying to turn it around faster. You do respect clubs that have that willingness.
And the Cardinals have received, I think at times justifiably so, some flack for their spending. This is a time where a lot of teams would not be doing it the way that they are. A lot of teams would have looked around and said, we have to do everything to slash payroll as much as possible. And I'll give credit where it's due. They have not done that. And I appreciate that they're not doing that right now. So credit to them. Doesn't happen often, but right now I do think they deserve a little bit of credit for this. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for Believe It or Not here on 101 ESPN.
Believe it or not, I'm walking on air. I never thought I could feel so
Free, flying away on a wing and a prayer. Who could it be?
Believe it or not, it's just me.
R.I.P. BK.
I did what I could, man.
Why do you ruin the song every time?
I'm not
That
trying.
one
You guys
I
have heard my voice
felt
all
bad.
day long. I'm trying, man.
That one I felt bad. You didn't have to do the wings when you were doing it, though. You know?
I did it.
What was
I
this?
just
then?
tried to do what I could. I'm sorry.
That one was brutal. Blame
Got a little bit of a
Mucinex.
cold. I'm working through it.
Blame Mucinex. That's who you should blame, ladies and gentlemen.
They're doing everything they can, man.
Yeah, but they
not on them.
obstructed the vocal cords. See, he's out
Alex,
here
as you
hacking.
know, once you have a 1-year-old, just expect it. Like once the weather, basically daylight savings comes, and you expect to be sick until we turn
November
up.
1st hits.
You should do a lot for it, though. You should just eat food off of the ground, build your immune system up.
There you
That's
go.
basically what we do.
Mine's like a steel safe because I've just with 3 of them, it's just nonstop in that house.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for Believe It or Not. You guys give us a scenario. We will tell you if we are believing it or not here on BK and Ferrario. Guys, believe it or not, the Cincinnati Bengals remain the best bet to win the Super Bowl this year in terms of the value that you're getting for them. The Bengals right now, as of today, are 35-1 to win the Super Bowl, as are the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Chargers, by the way, 45-1.
Ugh.
I know. I guess
Washington, 22-1.
that's not better than Cincinnati, though. I guess I'm going to have to say Cincinnati.
Green Bay, 21-1 to win the Super Bowl. Is that true? Whew, boy,
I'm not taking that one.
hopping over to Illinois.
I'm not taking that one at all. I guess I'd have to say Cincinnati, but I don't buy it. If you're going best odds, though, like they at least have shown the ability to beat Kansas City in the past, which I think is the most important part if you're talking about winning a Super Bowl. Yeah, I would say believe it.
I'm not believing it. I don't think the Bengals can win the Super Bowl this year. There's just too much blah to them this year. It just hasn't been a well-oiled machine. So I'm not going to believe it because I think, like I'm looking at the odds right now, I think the best value bet on the board is probably Green Bay at 20 plus 2,100.
I agree.
I don't know if there's
I'm not
another
believing this either. That's the best bet on the board right now.
I thought about the
I need to go
Texans.
over to Illinois.
But the Texans are just like Cincinnati for me. They're just giving off weird vibes.
I think the Commanders got a better shot than the Packers. I think they got a better quarterback in terms of Jordan Love's just not going to be right this
Well,
season.
there you go, 22-1.
Yeah.
Alex?
I'm going best odds, though, and I think Cincinnati's got better odds. That's what we go with this one. Boys, believe it or not, Jordan Binnington is the number 1 goaltender for the Four Nations Team Canada.
It sounds like the answer is yes.
I don't know, man. Some people are saying that Aiden Hill could get it because Aiden Hill's a guy that gets hot and he plays well for a stretch.
Are you describing Aiden Hill or Jordan Bennington?
Look, who are you talking to right now? Come on, man. Come on, man.
He almost had a similar response to yesterday. Almost.
No,
You thought about
no, because you let me finish. I didn't have to swat you down on that one, but
Tebow.
I'm not going to believe. Well, I am going to believe. I do believe he will be the goalie for Four
Thanks, man.
Nations.
Yeah.
Can I be honest?
You forgot
guys
what I
care?
said?
No. I remembered what you said.
No,
I was more
I'm going to answer
frustrated.
your question. No, I don't.
I hate
actually
that-
do.
I hate this Four Nations. It's 4 freaking teams. It's not like it's the Olympics where there's 12 of
yeah,
them.
but it's an actual all-star game compared to what the other one is where it's 3-on-3 that I could give 2 craps about. Like now I get to see all of the best Canadian players play against all of the best Sweden players, the best Finnish players. That I do care about. That's going to be fun.
I do think it will be cool. Do I care about it? No. Do I care who's on each respective roster? For me, no.
I don't think it's going to be cool because it's not like it's the Olympics. I don't really. The
It's
results.
a setup for the Olympics, though. It's the preview of the Olympics.
Except it's 4 teams. It's not 12.
Okay, but were you really excited about the potential
There's
of
some
what
good
Slovakia
Latvians.
or Czech can do in the?
Don't you remember when Halak was really leading the Slovakians
Yeah,
in the
if you're excited
The
for
Blues have like 12 Slovaks.
if you do they? I don't think they do. Do they?
We're more Swedish. Yeah,
Dvorsky's Slovakian, or is he
See?
Czech?
Well,
He
you
might be
wouldn't get
Czech.
to. You
I don't
wouldn't
think
get to watch
Dvorsky's
him
going
in
to be
this
the
stupid tournament.
Well, you
would
wouldn't anyway. But I mean, look, if you're excited about the Swiss team and that's what's upset about the Four Nations, then more power to you.
Tebow?
Guys, believe it or not, the Cardinals pivoting on their cutting of payroll that we were just talking about is a sign that Chaim Bloom believes he can turn this around faster than we originally thought.
I think it's a sign that guys wanted to stay. And I think that it is just that. I mean, it's now been reported Contreras wants to stay, so much so that he's willing to move off of the position that really matters to him. I mean, how many times has he talked about how much pride he takes in being a catcher? He views himself not as a hitter, a catcher.
And he came to St. Louis because Yachty was his idol.
And he wanted to replace him at that position, which means so much in this town. So for him to be willing to move to first base, I think that's meaningful. Sonny Gray, I think it's about the location, personally. He wants to be close to home. That's part of why he signed here with St. Louis. But he also loved the tradition. He talked about that a ton when he signed here. So I think it actually speaks to the players believing that they're not that far away. It speaks to Contreras and Sonny Gray looking around and being like, hey, I can still win here within the next couple of years. And I think that speaks pretty highly, personally. So I'm not sure it says a ton about how Chaim Bloom views the future. I do think it speaks to how the players view the future.
And I think it speaks to...
It also speaks highly of Ollie Marmol, by the way.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Yeah, I guess. How long is he here, though, you know? That's
I don't know,
the
but
biggest
they're
thing.
clearly wanting to do it for another year. Sonny Gray doesn't have a ton of time left. He's got 2 years left under this contract. He's getting up there in age.
Yep.
If he hated playing
he should
for...
love Ollie, man. He pulls him when it's hot.
Yeah, man, you don't have to pitch more than 5 innings.
If
That's all that
Contreras and
matters.
Sonny hated Ollie, I will just say this. I don't think they would want to come back next year. We've seen
not
that
wrong.
in the past where guys have not liked their manager here in St. Louis, Dexter, and at times that's caused some issues.
He had an excuse for that one, though. I could understand his upset with the manager. Yeah, I think some of it might be Chaim Bloom. I think some of it also is just the Cardinals have guys that refuse to leave, want to stay here, and there's not much else you could do. So rather than tear it all down completely because everybody was willing to leave, now you have to veer in a different direction to at least stay somewhat competitive.
How do you guys think Chaim feels about where they are now? The reason I asked that is if I were in Chaim Bloom's shoes, I'm glad I'm not, but if I were in Chaim Bloom's shoes, I would almost want the fresh reset on the payroll like I thought he was going to get. You know, now he doesn't really get that. You know, because Contreras' contract runs for another 3 years. Gray's contract runs for another 2 years. Yeah, but like the way I envision the offseason of trading Helsley, trading Gray, trading potentially Arenado. That was one I thought he was going to get stuck with, if I'm being honest. And trading Contreras. Then I look at when he takes over next year, and it's like basically a clean books for him, and he can do what he wants. And now he's going to have those guys. And I don't want to say he's stuck because they're still good ball players, but they're not the guys he brought in. You know, that's where it is.
It's kind of 1 year, though. Like, this upcoming season is still the Mo experience. And if we assume that Nolan Arenado's gone, it's just Willson Contreras and Sonny Gray. Sonny has that 1 year remaining on his contract. It isn't a lot. It's $35 million for that year. But then it's over. So, and then beyond that, it's $18 million for Willson Contreras on a 1 year deal.
Don't both have club options? So I guess you could, but like you wouldn't opt out of those.
It's a buyout. It's a $5 million buyout. Sonny will be gone after not the 2025 season, but the 2026 season, which is the first that Chaim Bloom is here. And $35 million is not going to prevent you from really doing anything, you know, because you've got, at that point in time, Miles Michaelis is gone, Steven Matz is gone, Eric Fetty's gone, Ryan Helsley potentially is gone, depending on what happens this offseason. And it's not like you have a bunch of guys that are in arbitration that are going to be having significant raises by then. So I think he's going to have pretty clean books, man. The Arenado deal potentially coming off the books this year, that's the one that they really needed by then. And if they can, I think you're good. I think you needed to move one of those. And if they're getting ready to do that, I'm all in. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line for Believe It or Not. I also feel the need to be right all the time, so that's what I've got up for you as well.
I knew that one already.
From the 314, guys, believe it or not, we will see at least 5 new faces for the Cardinals in the bullpen next year. 5 feels like a lot.
I'd be shocked if there's like 2.
Yeah, I was going to say, I get rid of Helsley, you get rid of Keenan Middleton, but he wasn't even already there. I think you maybe have 1.
Fernandez will be back next season. King will be back next season. JoJo will be back next season. I think Riley O'Brien is going to be a part of it next year as well. Chris Roycroft, 5 seems really aggressive. I'll say not believe it.
Yeah, I'm not going to believe it. I think it's going to be like 2 guys. That would be kind of my thought process. And it's probably going to be 1 major league deal, 1 minor league deal.
1 minor league deal, 1 Rule 5 draft pick.
Oh, another one?
Yeah, that'll be 2.
You might as well.
Yeah.
Sure. Rule 5 is always where you go get a pitcher and just throw in there.
Exactly. See if it works, and if not, you give them back to the old team by
head on back. You guys want them back?
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service X line from the 618. Believe it or not, Arenado will be traded to a Central Division rival.
I'm I'm not gonna believe that.
Cubs don't have a spot.
Yeah, Cubs don't have a spot,
It's
and then
not a move
who
that
else
the
is?
Brewers would do.
Yeah, and who else is taking that money if it's not the Cubs, right?
Yeah.
Brewers wouldn't do it.
Pirates aren't
wouldn't
doing
do
that.
it.
Reds aren't going to do
Yeah.
that.
What do the Reds have at third base? Santiago Espinal is their starter right now.
Yeah, but they wouldn't take on his contract.
They need.
No, they wouldn't.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I know you like to be right. You're wrong.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line.
That was a better way of me of handling yesterday.
Yeah.
Next time.
I actually respected that. Believe it or not, the Missouri Tigers will win this weekend against Oklahoma.
No, not believe it. If Drew Pine is under center, not believe it.
Man, I know Oklahoma's got a bad offense. Drew Pine's worse. So I'm not going to believe it.
Believe
By
it or
the way,
not, this
don't watch
game
the
goes over 35 points.
Pine may throw a pick six to get him there. So I'll say believe it.
Believe it. Oklahoma scores 28. Mizzou gets a touchdown.
Get
The
28.
over-under is 41.5. My
Oh, yeah.
God.
I would take the under.
Take the under.
Yeah, I would too. What, out of curiosity, like one of the triple option schools, what's their over-under for their game this week?
Oh,
I bet it's more than Mizzou.
let's
I don't
see
know
here.
if Army's playing. I think Navy's
Army's
next.
playing North Texas, and the over-under is 64.5. My God, man.
And that's with one offense that runs the triple option.
Other than that,
Maybe it's
I'd have to
Navy
go
was
into
off,
it.
but
Navy is playing USF over under 57.5.
see, go watch those games, not the Mizzou Oklahoma game.
Air Force is playing Fresno State over under 40.5. So you
There
basically
you go.
have the same over
Air
under
Force
this
is like
weekend
1
as Air
and 8.
Force.
Air Force is going to put up more points.
Not what you're looking for. All right, coming up next, we mentioned this a bit to Joey Vitale earlier today. Alex, they have announced that the road to the Winter Classic Series is going to begin starting in early December. The Blues are going to be a part of this. It's the Blues versus the Blackhawks this year for the Winter Classic. We know that the storyline for the Blackhawks is going to be Connor Bedard. That's obvious. What do you think are going to be the top storylines for the Blues that they'll be following for the Winter Classic Series? We'll talk about that next year on 101 ESPN.
Tanner Hendrickson here. The Sports Center update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Blues back in action tonight as they host the Utah Hockey Club. We'll have pregame coverage starting at 6 o'clock with Alex Ferrario and Joey Vitale. Then Joey will join Chris Carber for Puck Drop at 7. And the news from earlier this morning, the Cardinals have reached a new multi-year digital rights agreement with the FanDuel Sports Network Midwest, which for the first time will include a direct-to-consumer streaming option for fans within the extensive Cardinals TV territory. This Sports Center update is brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
With Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, it was announced yesterday that we have a firm date on when the return or the run for the Cup. Excuse me, I apologize, guys. The road to the NHL's Winter Classic is going to be returning in early December. December 5th is when it will begin on TNT. And the Blues are going to be featured in this. It'll be the Blues versus the Blackhawks for the Winter Classic this year. Typically, the way this goes with these kinds of TV shows, they'll have certain storylines that they're going to be following. Like they're going to be focused on a specific player or a specific aspect of the team, whatever. It's not hard to suggest that Chicago is going to have the storyline of Connor Bedard. Like that's going to be the thing that you're following. The 19-year-old superstar, that's an easy one. What do you think they're going to focus on for the Blues, Alex, as they go through this experience?
I think they're going to have a lot of them. I think the clearest one is off the table now because of Philip Broberg. I think the clearest one was Broberg, Holloway, Offer Sheet Boys, and guys that are taking over. Like, I find this fascinating because my guess is they'll start the recording on that New York road trip, and then from there just kind of follow the team throughout the month of December. If I'm looking at this in terms of the biggest storyline, there's two that come to mind. One is Jordan Kyrou, because without Robert Thomas, and he probably won't be back until the middle of December, Jordan Kyrou is going to be the quote-unquote leader of the team in terms of how he's playing the points, and then that's going to be a guy that they're following from the criticism last year to how they're at right now. He to me is one of them, and then the other is your goaltending, because Binnington is going to be in the conversation for Team Canada, not in the conversation. He'll be a part of Team Canada for the Four Nations game. He and Joel Hofer have created this unbeatable tandem in the NHL. That's going to be a storyline that I wonder if they focus heavily on because they play a lot of games in December, so you're going to see a lot of both goalies.
I think it's Binnington. That, to me, is the number one storyline that they're going to be following. The guy that won you the Cup, that had all of the antics. I think they're going to focus on the thing that got us yelling at each other yesterday, Alex. That's when people nationally internationally even think about the Blues, the first guy that comes to mind is not Jordan Kyrou. It's not Robert Thomas. It's Jordan Binnington, because he's the guy that won you the Cup. It was that crazy Disney-level story where he comes in as like the fifth guy that was in their depth chart at goalie, and then suddenly him and Craig Berube come in and they're winning the Cup, hoisting the Cup together. I think that's going to be the no doubt about it, like number one storyline for the Blues. T-Bone, what else do you think they add to that, though?
Yeah, I think I agree with you. I think that's definitely number one. I think Kyrou could be up there in the top, like, 3 of the storylines. I think one that's going to be one of the biggest secondary storylines is the Joseph brothers playing together in the NHL.
Oh, interesting.
And they will be I believe, they will be the first brothers to play in the NHL Winter Classic together.
That's a really good one.
I think that will be a big storyline that they will follow, what it's like playing with your brother. I don't know what their living situation is. Maybe if they live together, what it's like doing that. I think that's probably going to be one of the bigger secondary storylines they follow. And then along with, Drew Bannister, a guy that comes in. He had an interim role for the Blues last year. But, hey, Bannister, we've talked about it. He's in the mode of, hey, I'm not here though his job is kind of determined by the development of some of these guys. Bannister's here to win, man. This is Bannister's one chance to prove he belongs in the NHL as an NHL head coach. I think I wouldn't be shocked if they end up following him and what that's like for his journey.
I actually think this team's got a lot of storylines because you're also at the point that they're filming and following the Blues. You're going to have the recovery and return of Robert Thomas, Philip Broberg. They're going to be working their way back. But on the line of the Joseph brothers, because I think that's great, you're going to be focusing, or they're going to be focusing in on the new faces that are on this team. Because not just the Joseph brothers, you're going to have Ryan Suter, who's going to be closing in on the age of 40 years old and 1,500 games played in the NHL, which I believe would put him like top 5 amongst players, who's also logging like 25 minutes a night, you're going to be focusing in on a Radek Faksa who's going to be on another team that has just joined a group, and then you're going to have the Holloways and the Brobergs. I do think the Blues are going to have more fascinating storylines than the Chicago Blackhawks in this road to the Winter Classic.
Blackhawks just have one.
Yeah, I mean, they do. They're going to have a lot of the
They'll
other.
have the biggest storyline. Blues have more.
They're going to have the Blackhawks being. They're going to have the others of, the kid that they drafted second overall last year. A lot of the younger faces and what the next look of the Chicago Blackhawks are going to be. But depending on where the Blues are at in the standings, if you're in a playoff conversation, these guys are coming back from injuries and the storylines we just referenced. I have a feeling the NHL is going to be talking a lot more about the Blues than the Blackhawks after this.
I think so too, but I just think that I hope Blues fans are prepared for this. The headline for this will be Bedard.
Yeah. Oh, of course.
Because the NHL wants to showcase him because he was the guy that was supposed to come in and be the next big thing, right? And he hasn't been that yet. He's been better, much better this year than he was last year. It's still not quite to the degree that we were all anticipating, but he's also 19 years old and he's a smaller guy, and we knew that there was potentially going to be some transition problem or growing pains for Connor Bedard as he got into the league. But I think that he will be the single biggest storyline, and then there will be a pretty wide gap, and then the next biggest one I think will be Binnington, and then it'll be a dozen other potential storylines that they're following throughout. And it'll probably be something where like Bedard and Binnington are the two stories that you see throughout the series. It's not just one episode. And then, one episode they'll do the Joseph brothers. Another episode, maybe they do the Kyrou redemption story, right? It starts with him getting booed, Craig Berube, all that. And then it becomes like, look what he's doing lately. I could see something like that. It's just an easy narrative to be able to draw. We talked about that a little bit yesterday on the show.
I think more times than not, you're going to see fans react to being like, okay, enough of Connor Bedard. And I think because there's so many different storylines with the Blues, that's where you get the excitement with it.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up next, we'll have the BK and Ferrario Rewind here on 101 ESPN. With Alex and T-Bone on BK, you got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. Alex, to finish out the show today with the BK and Ferrario Rewind, I do want to get back to something that we discussed briefly earlier, which is, hey, Willson Contreras was not a failed signing. He's been a good signing in terms of what the Cardinals should have been expecting out of him. He's been super productive offensively. He's been, league average, would you guys say, defensively as a catcher?
I think that's fair.
Yeah, because the first year was below, and then this year I thought was above. So, yeah, I think it evens itself out.
So we'll call it league average defensively, which is probably about as good as they could have expected when they signed him. The Cardinals changed what they were looking for. They bought a sports car, and it was the winter, and it's in mid-Colorado up in the mountains. Like, what'd you expect? It's probably not going to go super well. But in the summer, man, you're going to enjoy it. It's going to look beautiful. So they're moving him over to first base, and he's going to be here for the next couple of years, potentially. I wanted to ask you guys, because I looked this up during one of the breaks. The Cardinals' multi-year contracts worth at least $10 million since 2010 are as follows. I'm curious where you think the Willson Contreras deal ranks among these. Matt Holliday back in 2010. Now, T-Bone mentioned he was already here. It's a little different, but he did technically hit free agency. Carlos Beltran in 2012, Johnny Peralta in 2014, Mike Leake in 2016, Dexter Fowler in 17, Andrew Miller in 19, and then you've got Steven Matz, Willson Contreras, Sonny Gray. Where would you rank the Willson Contreras contract among those that I just mentioned?
Third. Beltran would be first, Holliday second, Willson Contreras third.
I'd go Holliday, Beltran, and then Contreras. But I think you can make an argument for second.
I think Beltran was so awesome.
He was, but I think we remember it that way because the team was really good and he helped them win. I think if you just looked one for one, I think you could make a case Contreras has actually been the better signing over Carlos Beltran. Like, if you replaced Contreras at the time, you take Beltran, put him on this team. Take Contreras, put him on that team. I think we would remember Contreras more fondly.
I think the hard part, at least on my side of it, is you were without Albert Pujols, and Carlos Beltran stepped in, and it's like you forgot about Albert Pujols because Beltran was that good. And Willson Contreras, although he's been awesome, you had Goldschmidt and Arenado, and you still came up short. Like, Carlos Beltran was a piece of his team that nearly got you another World Series.
Yeah, I would hear the argument on it. I do think it's a good debate on what would be second between those two. But I think
it's
my
order, top three, though, right?
Yeah, I agree. It's top three, and that list is a bad list.
Yeah, I was going to say it's three and then wolf.
Yeah, like fourth is Johnny Peralta, and then I don't know who the hell's five.
Sonny Gray, I guess.
Sonny Gray will probably
Sonny Gray, I
end
think,
up
would be fourth.
Yeah. I would want to see another year before saying that because we had this argument in season. I thought this year was a little disappointing from Sonny Gray, but I think by the end of next year, it will be fourth on that list. And that list is, whew.
Yeah, I was going to say, man, it gets ugly pretty quick.
To your point, though, like Contreras, I mentioned 33% above league average in his 2 years here in terms of WRC plus. You look at Beltran and his OPS plus in that time, it was at, I think, 27% above league average. So they're like right in line with what those two guys did. The only thing that would probably give Beltran the advantage is I think he played more games in the first 2 years of what Contreras has. But that's to the health thing and why they're moving him to first base.
Man, it also speaks to, like, the best deals that they ended up making. Set aside Beltran for a second. It's the deals that were big. It's like actual going out in the market and signing top flight talent. Like Matt Holliday, stud. Willson Contreras, legit top 5 catcher in Major League Baseball. Now, just, top 30 hitter in Major League Baseball, let's call him. Sonny Gray, legit MVP or Cy Young candidate the year prior. The other stuff where you're getting Andrew Miller at the back end of his career, Dexter Fowler, who's like a solid leadoff hitter, but didn't really work in center field. Like, you knew what the issues were potentially going to be there. Mike Leake, like these guys are just the mid-tier of the market that you're overspending for their age 30-plus season. Those are always going to potentially come back to haunt you. There are some lessons to be learned from the deals that did work and the deals that very much did not work for the Cardinals. And hopefully, Chaim Bloom looks back on that and says, yeah, we're going to get away from some of that mid-tier market. If we're going to go spend in free agency, let's go get the creme de la creme. Let's go get the stud that's potentially going to come in here and be a star for us. Hopefully, those are some of the lessons that can be learned.
I won't get too excited about that, but
he's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson. And I'm Brandon Kiley. Oh, boy.
He doesn't even make the list.
Wow. It was such a bad contract. BK wrote
forgot about it.
It wasn't $10+ million, right? Wasn't it like a
I thought it was just a multi-year
$1 deal. I think it was a little less than 10 per.
Okay. Still.
Regardless, the bottom. He's at the very bottom of this list. All right, we will talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. Hopefully my voice is holding up a little bit better by then.
He's not going to be here.
Until then, the Fast Lane's coming up next here on 101 ESPN.
And my Vegas nerves get shooken up, and I'm right back being dad mode 2 minutes later.